Good evening, everybody, and welcome. It's round 9. Can you believe it? 9 rounds out of an 11-round season into the 2024 ASR Supercars Championship. And backed by popular demand, it is international round. Although this time, it's not on the eastern seaboard of the United States. It's on the west coast and the street circuit known only by 2 words: Long Beach. It's been around for well over 25 years, closing in almost on 30, in fact, I think, because it was a track that was conceived in the mid to late 1990s in some form or another. Various guises it's had over the years. This is the layout they run in the IndyCar. And as I welcome my co-commentator Benjamin "Roadie" Rhodes to the commentary box for the first time tonight, Roadie, from one concrete jungle on the east coast of the country of Australia, from the Gold Coast, no other, to the Golden Coast, as they call it, in the California western side of the United States. Well, they're both concrete line jungles. I don't know what to make of tonight, but if Development Series is anything to go by, this is going to be an interesting one.
Yeah, it will be. Good evening, everyone. We've gone from a track on the east coast of a country on the west of the Pacific to a track on the west coast in a country on the east side of the Pacific, which I think was what you're trying to go for there.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, coming in tonight, it's interesting to see how it goes. A lot of guys racing tonight were either around or were watching Dev Series last week. A lot of the guys who were watching tonight were either racing or around last week before Dev Series. And yeah, you and I were both involved as well. You were broadcasting. I was watching both races by the end of it. The same tyre barrier got me twice. But yeah, based on Dev Series, we are crossing fingers that we're not spending the next 2 hours having to fill some air. But we'll see how we go.
Yeah, that's right. And I do want to, on that note as well, you're right, Development Series last week was a little bit of an interesting one too. We'll touch on that throughout the night. I do want to pay a bit of homage as well, and I guess a bit of a baptism of fire for my co-commentator last week, Lockie Lock, the former Super 2 champion and Supercars driver in the field. That was probably the most difficult race I could have thrown him into for his broadcast debut, but he'll get better. There's no doubt about that. He'll get better. He probably just needs a decent round to do it in. So the Development Series have got 4 rounds remaining of the championship. They've got trips to Sandown, Bathurst, and then, of course, the same 2 rounds that are left in the Supercars Championship. They've got Taupo and Adelaide to finish off. So they've got a little bit more racing to get through. But it's hard to believe that this is the 8 rounds into an 11-round championship. It's getting close to championship time. By the end of tonight, we'll have a rough idea of where everybody sits. And then for the next 2 rounds, we've also got to factor in the drop round in points, because that hasn't been calculated just yet. But a few people are really looking at that point standings and trying to work out where they actually will sit when all the bad rounds are taken into consideration. But then that sort of sets up the last 2 rounds of the championship. 5 races after tonight is over before the championship is done, or run and done. 7 races in total across the remaining 3 rounds. But the object of tonight is get around this 3.16 kilometre or concrete lined jungle. So let's have a look at it, because as you said, Rhodey, we have left the eastern coast of Australia. We have headed to the west coast of the United States, particularly to California. There's where LA is. Directly south of the city of Los Angeles is the port of Long Beach. If you lived here, if you're watching TV back in the day, this would have been the famous home of Jesse James, the direct descendant of the legendary Outlaw, and the home of West Coast Choppers, home of West Coast Customs if you're a custom car junkie. But there's nothing custom about this circuit. It is unforgiving. There's 11 corners in total. There's a high-speed section at the front of the circuit, high-speed section at the back. There's the most notable feature at this circuit, Rhodey, is the water fountain at turns 2 and 3 and the hairpin at turn 11. There's a one-line groove through most of those 2 parts of the track.
Yeah, absolutely. But if this were truly a custom circuit, to go off what you're saying, based off of the standards we see for something like F1, we'd probably see that the turn 2, 3, 4 complex, where you get reprofiled, where you get set up in a way that's a much smoother corner, probably a chicane, but maybe not quite the strength that you get through 2 and 3 with the fountain. Turn 11 also, that work with a modern, at least an F1 style steering rack. That'd be way too tight. It's even probably tighter than most corners on some of the tightest corners on Monaco. But this isn't an F1 grade track, and it's all the better for it because it means that we're not getting meddled on by F1's track developers. Instead, this has been the home of IndyCar racing for quite a few years, and the IndyCars make it very, very well around here. They said they face the same problems that we're going to face tonight, the issues of trying to get anything to happen through 2, 3, and ultimately 4 as a result, because your best chance to do anything is to hopefully get a clean run out of 3 and try and dive at 4, but the braking opportunity for 3 and 4 is so short. Your best opportunities for a pass are going to be into 6, into 7, into 8, and then back into 1. And then, 9, 10, 11, really just a case of avoiding something that happens, or avoiding being the reason that something happens. And if something does happen, paying enough attention to what's around you that you don't end up in it, because very easily turn 11 can be a car park for the entire field. We've seen in testing and getting the track put together that even the safety car wasn't immune in the first time out from running into the wall on the outside, such as the tightness of that corner.
Yes, it is a very, very tight corner, and yes, the safety car did have to have a little bit of reprofiling done just to sort of get around that corner. It's not the greatest steering lock. These cars, as you rightly pointed out, steering lock is not their friend. Going around some of those corners like turn 11 and especially around the water fountain, they are having to put up the steering lock and the degrees of rotation to make sure they can get through the corner, but they have to find that balancing act because a lot of these corners, they're not quite 90-degree left and right-hand corners. There's some that are a little bit more open than that, but a lot of drivers are very, very tempted to carry momentum through these corners. The problem is, if you get it wrong, you end up in a fence or in a tyre barrier on the other side, and then when the next car comes along, it is effectively, some of these corners are blind approaches, as you'll see going into some of these corners, because there's no runoff. As you can see from the graphic there is virtually no room for error from track edge to track edge, and you come around a corner, say at turn 1, and you don't realise there's a car sitting there on the other side of the road. You don't know that car's there until you're 3/4 of the way around the corner. You've got very little chance of avoiding that carnage. So if the yellow flags are out, you've got to pay attention. You've got to button it off, 2 or 3 notches and make sure you can see the incident around the corner before you try and attempt to avoid it, because if you go around that corner at full tilt, you're going to end up potentially into another car and your race could be over.
Absolutely. The other thing to think about as well is that, and it's not a unique track for it, but it's just with what's available to the track. It's not, for example, Gold Coast doesn't have this issue nearly as badly. A lot of places, a lot of the straights on this track, nice and wide. You can see from the background on the stream how wide the front straight is. We were in testing, I think, for Dev Series, getting at least 3 cars wide, and we're also running a Aussie racing car race around here next Wednesday. Those were up to 5 or 6 wide into turn 1. The problem is, coming off at turn 1, there's a tyre wall on the outside you want to avoid, so that takes one car width off of the road, and the entire road then narrows down to about 2 cars wide going into the water fountain. So you can very easily get in trouble just by virtue of going for a move, not quite getting it done, and then being stuck trying to figure out where your car's going to sit. And I think especially lap 1 and any time after a restart, if there is cars are out of position to where they feel they should be, if cars are getting really good starts or really good restarts, that's going to be a problem point as well. And I think we had 2 or 3 of the safety cars out of Dev Series come off of early in the lap incidents because of sections like that.
Yes, you're absolutely right. There's parts of the track where it becomes very, very narrow very quickly. It goes from being a nice wide open straight to, a corner where it's barely, enough to get 2 cars wide side by side. So there are plenty of little challenges around this track. We aren't too far away from going into qualifying, which itself is going to be a rather interesting affair. If you hark back to, if you're watching on the Dev Series broadcast last week, you would have realised that the pit lane here is extremely long. Now, in real life circumstances, the pit lane for IndyCar is an 80km/h lane. For Supercars, at every circuit they go to in Australia, it is 40 km/h. So that's what it is here. It is 40 km/h. It is pedestrian-like going down the pit lane. So people are going to have to leave the lane virtually, or leave their pit base or their garaging area, which is just off to the left of the screen there, just where the black tent is on the screen. There's a little entrance that comes off the back support paddock there. They have to leave there pretty much as soon as the session starts, and then they have to get all the way down the pit lane, and by the time they get to the control line that releases them to go onto the track at full speed, the clock's already been about 10 seconds elapsed. So there's got to be no mucking around tonight, got to be no dawdling. You have to be on it in qualifying because it's only 10 minutes and you've got to make the most of it to get through your run plan.
Absolutely, yeah. So that's I liken this in the Dev series, and we might see a little bit of this in just seconds. I likened it in Dev series, watching guys in practice coming out of pit lane, to like watching a marble race. They're all sitting there doing 40, and some of them are trying to take the inside line, trying to shorten it off a little bit, but they're all doing 40. So all doing that an assortment of colours, and granted, Supercars is a little bit less assorted with its colours, but assortment of coloured cars, all trying to roll their way down to the pit lane. And also something else we're seeing as well, and just trying to get out, such as the rush. Because of the way that we're in the sport paddock, we're seeing little incidents between the cars, but they are now getting into the lane itself. And yep, there is one definite marble race going on there. All the cars running themselves down to the pit lane as close to the start time as possible.
Yep, this is exactly what we were talking about. You know, big lineup of cars having to come out the back of the pit lane. You just saw, look at the lash up there. I mean, we talk about a lash up in terms of being a train sort of thing, but you can see there the clock's already gone green. So we are now ticking down. Anthony Green's at the head of this field, and look, 10 seconds has already elapsed. He hasn't even got to the point where he can switch the pit limiter off yet. So he's about to do that now. So that's already 15 seconds gone. So it doesn't sound like much, but around a track where the lap time's sort of in the high 1 minute teens, the low 1 minute 20s, that's a lot considering you've got to get around and get your run plan going. And a lot of drivers will be looking at, probably 2-3 laps maybe maximum on this tyre. And then they'll get in and get another set of tyres and go out for a second run. But it's all about timing when all that happens. And going down the pit lane is going to cost you a lot of time. So not only getting down the lane, making sure you get out where there's a gap so you can just get through your plan and make sure you can get everything done. Now, talking of tyres, Rody, there's only one tyre available tonight for the two races that we have. We didn't allude to that before, but there's a 16-lap sprint and a 32-lap longer distance race, and the soft tyre is the only tyre available. So that in itself throws a spanner in the works tonight.
Exactly. There are a lot of guys that would have come into tonight, come into this round. We're talking before we actually confirmed formats and confirmed the rules about tyre availability. A lot of guys were coming into this looking at race 2. I was one of them looking at race 2 without realising that soft was the only format available, and thought, brilliant. As somebody who's run hard tyres, where hard tyres have been available all year, tried to no stop it, that sounds like a perfect opportunity, at least in Dev Series it was. I think the fuel tank's a bit short for guys in Supercars to make it work. But for Dev Series, it was definitely in the window of possibility that with a safety car to help you out in the right spot, that you could no stop this on hard. But it's a soft tyre race, which is good in a way because it evens out for everyone the penalty of that pit lane. The pit lane, as we mentioned, is very long, is at 40 k's an hour. Compared to every other pit lane in Supercars, it feels like it takes an eon. But because everyone's going to have to visit that at least once in race number 2, it nullifies any penalty that pit lane itself is going to have. The question is going to be when you take the pit lane, and I suppose when the race allows you to take the pit lane, where safety cars fall. Generally for Dev Series, you want to hit about the halfway mark. But for these guys, I'm not quite sure where that sits for them. It's a slightly bigger fuel tank, but also going to probably be a little bit more tyre wear with these cars with a bit less air involved.
No, that's right. Well, suffice it to say, there's going to be a bit of a golfing class here, and I think, Roy, you and I probably come into tonight looking at this man on screen here, Luke Rosella, as probably the runaway favourite tonight. There was no way he was going to miss this race. He absolutely loves this track when he races it in iRacing. It's one of his favourites. It's in the same realm that this is his favourite, in the same way that Hockenheim is my favourite whenever I get a chance to race. So he was pretty much frothing at the mouth when this one came up on the calendar, and he wasn't going to miss it for the world. So our expectation is, at the bare minimum, front row. At the best, it's going to be a pole and the pair of race wins tonight. So he's the one that they're all chasing We're about to get an indication of what the first flying lap time is. It's in the 19s. It's a 19.3, so that's a good start.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting that we haven't really got an announcement coming in. We're just starting to see the laps coming now, which shows, the length of the pit lane and how we're taking the session with 4 minutes in. We're only just getting the first times in now, with a 1 minute 20 lap time. But it's, the other thing to point out as well is he was making half of it in practice, and he's looking pretty good for it right now. Ryan Smith was up, he was up in second. He's now down to third with Wayne Walker heading up there, but he's still ahead of Tim Redmond. And crucially, a couple of guys ahead of Kurt Stenberger there as well. Same thing as Watkins last year, though. It's going to be, some of it is going to be down to your ability with the car and your ability to set up the car. A lot of this is going to lean into, though, how much time you've spent around this track, because every other track on the Supercars calendar is based on everyone's been there once, twice, 3 times, 4 times. It's really series tendency that just really determines that. But everyone's seen the track on at least one supercar. Nobody's driven supercars around here, at least on AMS, until tonight, or I said through a couple of the wild cars that are in the Dev Series last week. The Dev Series cars are different. And so it's really just down to the guys like Rosella, like some of the guys that will jump on iRacing, jump on other platforms and drive Long Beach there to get a rough idea. This isn't the same Long Beach that's come from other platforms. This was created from for AMS or R-Factor by someone from scratch, which we can tell with a couple of bits where the geometry doesn't quite stack up to real life. But still, there's very much the bits and the bobs, the general mechanics of how to drive a supercar fast around here that's going to be picked up by drivers who have been here before. So that's what you're going to see as well. Some guys, not unlike, I suppose, for anyone who's seen some of the social series racing, not unlike when we go to an oval round and it throws a complete cat amongst the pigeons. Same thing here. I think we're going to see some guys that find themselves a bit more familiar with Long Beach, they're going to sneak their way up towards the top of the timing tree. But obviously Rosella at the front, now only by 0.2 of a second over Wayne Walker. But yeah, he's going to be doing quite well. And Kurt Stenberg, I think, is going to have the interesting position where maybe Kurt's not quite so familiar around here because he's down there in 6th at the moment.
He's down to 7th at the moment. He's just on an outlap, so he's gone in and got himself a new set of tyres. The same way we saw a number of drivers trundling down the lane at the moment. But yeah, Walker has snuck up close to the top, which is not something I was expecting. I actually wasn't expecting Ryan Smith to be 3rd outright at the moment, provisionally as it sits right now. So those top 3 are the only 3 that are 1 minute 19. Actually, Green is the next best at 20.2, so he's about 2 3/4 tenths outside of dipping below the 1 minute 20 barrier. So this is mixing up the order a little bit. Then you've got Tim Redmond, who's just gone 5th, Alex Kiddis in 6th, and then the man on screen, Kurt Stenberg, in 7th. Devonish was 20th a little while ago. He's now up to 8th. Then Cox and Brendan Ross, and Cox has just displaced Brendan Ross, who was 9th for a brief moment. The tip at the night's beginning was that the times could be rather large, or actually the gap between the pole time and the time at the bottom of the timing sheets could be rather large. I mean, as it sits right now, 1st to 21st is 3.3 seconds, which is a little bit less than I was probably expecting. There's Higginson, who's last at the moment with a time on 22nd, but his time is well slower than what he's managed all night long so far, and I'm fully expecting he'll pick that up. And then there's no times for Lockie Lock and Steve Warwick just yet. Warwick's actually having a bit of trouble out there at the moment. He's not been able to string a couple of sectors together, and Lock's just starting another lap out there at the moment. We're watching Brenton Foley, who is 11th at the moment. Nick Martis, who's just watching out for the traffic on the racetrack there at the moment. That's actually a very important thing too. With the pit exit, you have to travel all the way down to the end of that yellow and red striped line before you can come across to the left-hand side. Oh, Foley, hold on to it! Oh, he's thrown that away. That was a promising sector, but that getting too much curb at turn 4, unfortunately, has been rather costly for him. So he's going to have to prep himself to go again. He's got no choice. You can't go back to the lane, put another set of tyres on now. You won't get out in time. You've got to be leaving the lane right now if you want to get another set of laps in. Stenberg gets track cut on that lap, and he has to go again. So this is where you earn the dollars and cents in the last 2 minutes of qualifying. Stenberg, yellow flag out. I think is that might have been Warwick potentially.
Yeah, Warwick. I think maybe trying to wait to get in. Yeah, he was trying to wait to get into the queue. Such was the
feeding in.
Cars going into one. He's just trying to wait to get a clear spot.
Alex Kiddis has just gone purple in Sector 1 in his last lap, and he's moved up to 4th place. Tim Redmond in 6th place just did a personal best, which is actually quicker than the pole sitter's time in Sector 1, and is now on his way to Sector 2. So there's a few Hollywood times and sectors starting to pop up here. Next sector split comes about 3/4 of the way down this back straight on the approach to turn number 8. Redmond's dropped away a little bit there, but his time's still looking pretty handy. This would be enough to move him up provisionally into 4th place if he can keep this going in the Beyond Electrical number 43. Number made famous by another American, Ken Block, sadly no longer with us, but hailed from these parts. Redmond currently 6th, goes to P4. He picked up a bit more time. That's a good time for him. So provisionally on the 2nd row, but got to go again here, tucked in there behind Burko. Speck just ahead of him. Stenberg again, and he improves his time, but doesn't improve the place. He stays 7th.
Yeah, so this is interesting. Either he's sitting on there, he's holding on some time, or he's really just not enjoying trying to get this car around here. It might be a setup, it might just be where he's at in terms of his time in practice. He's got a best opportunity right now to try and pick up some time, though. He's tucked in behind Luke Rosella. Luke Rosella currently still with that pole time. So he's got a very good yardstick to work through there, but he is starting to slip already from the back of the 55 that's running one of a couple of unique liveries this round. But yeah, the gap between the two is a second, which I think is the highest we've seen between these two guys in qualifying at rounds that have appeared at all year. So Stenberg hopefully has got a little bit in the bag, a little bit left over that he hasn't put down yet.
There's that Darren Loughnane who's just lost a wheel. He just ploughed into the turn 7 tyre barrier. Thankfully, he was out of the way of Rosella, who got through really smartly. That did cost him a little bit of time, though. But he was up a lot more than that at Sector 1 split. Walker is in the sheds. He's done. Ryan Smith in the sheds. He's done. Redmond's into the pit lane as well, so he's finished. He's just came into the pits just ahead of Rosella.
I think Stenberg's admitted defeat as well.
He has indeed. Devonish is still out there on track. He's the only one that could spoil it. Rosella picks up a couple of hundredths of a second there to go to a 19.2. So very, very nice pole time for him. That will probably go and challenge. Devonish pulls the pin as well. So they're all conceding defeat here. There's a few drivers that are still going. Cox is one of them. So too is Steele Allison, who's in for Leonard Grossel tonight. He's actually just finished in a time of 20.8. Burko is on a slow lap, so too Callaghan and Collins. They're just in the process of finishing. Cox is pushing the limit here, hoping to pick up another time. Did he get the wall there?
I don't know. He would have been pretty close.
Very, very close. Around the final corner. And if he picks up some time, it might be enough to move him to the other side of the 5th row. And no.
So not the most climactic end to a qualifying session we've had this year, but I suppose, as I said earlier, not necessarily going to be a big surprise either. We're tipping Rosella's going to do well, both with his interest in the track and obviously, consequently, his experience around it. And yeah, only by a couple of tenths in the end, so Wayne Walker sneaking up there, and as well, Ryan Smith hanging on pretty well there. And I expect to see that he would have slipped down at some point there, but I think that was a one and done time for him, because the next time I saw him in the session, he was running the back of his teammate. So yeah, I think that was a one and done time for Ryan Smith, which is pretty good. So that puts SES Team Dark in 3rd place. I think it's the highest they've had one of their cars starting all year. And then Redmond 4th, Will Devonish in 5th, Kiddising 6th, which is pretty good.
Very impressive
as well. But generally, he's been picked up his qualifying pace, so that's good to see. Anthony Green in 7th, Kurt Stenberg in 8th. That's the furthest down we've seen him in a little bit. And then Zach Brown in 9th. So good to see Zach back again, and he's carrying some good pace. So hopefully for him, he can make a bit more of a hash of the rest of the season with the sort of pace he's been pulling along. And then Coxie into the top 10.
Absolutely. So there's actually a nice little logjam in there too. So Allison, actually from Daniel Cox, who's a 20.8 down to down to even Luke Speck, who was a 20.1.0. There's nothing much in a lot of those times either. And just looking up and down the speed charts as well, maximum speeds we're seeing sort of like Rosella 264, Wayne Walker 266. but everybody 260 plus. Up to so from 261 to 266. So there's actually not a lot in terms of a high speed trap. It's just about people's getting out of the like the final corner and that run down to turn number one. Like that's where a lot of it was probably made. We did see a few people in practice going wide at the last corner, taking a really wide line to try and get those extra couple of meters to get that bit of a run up for the final on the approach to the first turn. And I think a few people have cottoned onto that and made that work, as evidenced by the speed trap numbers. So the majority of the field sort of 263, 264 through the speed trap. So very, very close. That means everybody's using the same gear ratio, which is a good sign, because that if you are using the wrong gear ratio, you are disqualified. So you want to keep notes of that. So qualifying done and dusted. Grid is now set. 24 cars out of our usual 31, I think it is. So it's actually not a bad number to have, I think, especially around a circuit like this. But the proof will be in the pudding over the first 16 laps. What we'll do now, we'll bring up the drivers' standings as it sits, exiting the Gold Coast round 3 weeks ago. Not the round that Kurt Stenberg would have wanted, Rody, because his championship lead has shrunk a little bit. I mean, it's under 200 points now. It's still a good margin. There's nothing wrong with the margin that he has. But, of course, the drop round still will come into play at some point. We haven't done any of those numbers just yet. But they will come into play at some point. And with Devonish starting ahead of Stenberg in this race coming up, you never know what's going to happen. But that's the beauty of this sort of racing. It's getting to the business end of the season, and the championship's starting to get a little bit interesting. It's top two there, as I said, just under 200 points. Noah Tara, who's not here tonight, unfortunately, is going to miss out on a few points. But then you look at Redmond, Green. Redmond is in pursuit of Wayne Walker, but then you've got Green, Foley, and Egmanis. That's a nice little battle. It's getting rather interesting there, isn't it?
It is, yeah. So the big movers out of last round in that was Noah Tara moving up with these pair of wins, although unfortunately for him, really bad time to be missing a round, and I'm just going to double check, but I have a feeling that's going to be... this will be his drop round.
That'll be his drop round.
But of the guys racing around him, he's the only one so far, at least at this point, to burn a drop round. So maybe that's a good thing for him, maybe not. Really depends on how tonight goes racing-wise. It might be a good round to drop. It depends on what Noah's pace would have been like otherwise. But so he's going to lose a little bit of ground to Walker. The other mover out of last round as well was Anthony Green, who picked up his second, or he might have been his third drop round. He's missed a few rounds this year, unfortunately, Anthony. He's one of a couple of drivers in the field that have got real racing commitments to attend to this year. I know, Lockie Burke's another, and he is here tonight. But Hayden Cupid as well has other commitments as well throughout the year. His more effective Dev Series campaign than Supercars. It is only his first time here tonight in the main game. But Green lost he lost a bit out of Sydney not being here, and lost a bit more out of Gold Coast. But it has put him into the nice little battle where perhaps on points he maybe be a bit closer to someone the likes of Tim Redmond. But where he is, he's just ahead of Foley, just ahead of Egmanis. And so that's a good little battle there for 6th place. And then, to back out the top 10, you got a nice little 4-point battle between Cox and Speck at the moment, which has generally been going Speck's favour. Speck's missed a couple of rounds at the start of the year. Obviously, SESO Light Racing was a mid-year entry. But he's been pulling some good performances together. He picked up a third and a fourth at the Gold Coast. And Coxie's been running well, but Coxie's never been one in Supercars to quite threaten for a podium position, whereas Speck's been picking them up where he can. So it's starting to swing Speck's favour, but at least based off tonight in qualifying, top 10 start for Cox, and Speck is I don't actually think he's racing tonight. I think Cato's in his car.
No, that's Luke Newing.
No, Newing. Sorry,
Luke Newing is in his car.
I'm getting the Luke's confused. Yeah, so Speck is here tonight. Newing's the one that's not here tonight. But yeah, so Speck is here tonight, but he is buried somewhere further down the pack. So this track being what it is, it's going to be hard to pass if you're trying to get a green flag pace-based pass going. So Speck, if he's sitting on some pace, he might have some trouble using it. But we'll see how that goes for him. Going out into the 20, Locke and Rutledge have been moving their way up by virtue of Lewis Wedding stepping out of the championship after Sydney, and Luke Newing picking up a DNF at the second race at Gold Coast. Obviously, they'll pull away from him with him not here tonight. Ryan Smith's back, so based off of his qualifying performance, it's to him shoot up the field. Aiden Williams not here tonight either, which is a shame. He's been popping in where he can, but he missed the Gold Coast. He's missing again tonight. And Rory Collins is back in as well, so he'll move up as well.
Yes, so there'll be a few bits of moving going on down the second lot of the standings that we have up on your screen there. So 11th through to 20th, there will be a few people come forward and a few people will fall down the order as a result of that one. But this group on screen here, yeah, there's not a lot in a number of these drivers' positions at the moment there too. So all it takes is a good result one way or the other, or a good round one way or the other, to swing the balance of the points. Looking forwards toward the last couple of rounds of the season. And you can see there a couple of drivers in the 700 bracket, a couple of drivers in the 800 bracket, and a couple of drivers in the 600 bracket. And yes, a little bit still to play out there. Over we go and we bring up the team standings. The team standings have been tracking along quite nicely all year. It's been a bit of an ebb and flow between the two CRE stables, so the engineering crew and the Amped Up Racing by CRE crew. So there was a bit of catch up from one side, and then the other side would lag a little bit. So that's the way that is. So at the moment, that's very much a two-horse race out in front. Wayne's World Motorsports need to pick their act up a little bit. They need some really strong results at the back end of the season to really threaten those two drivers of each of those two sets of teams that are up in front of them. And the real action is going to be interesting behind to see whether or not Sideways Esport Light can hold off the single car entrant team of Anticol Autosport, Kurt Stenberg at the wheel. But there's a few other teams that are nipping at the heels there of the top five, trying to round out as we round out the top 10, getting down to the bottom there. There's only properly really sort of 7 or 8 or 9 two car teams in the standings that have really featured heavily this year. The exception there, of course, is the Anticol Autosport one of Kurt Stenberg, as is traditionally to be expected with Kurt's prolific scoring capabilities. But as it sits right now, that is how the teams look after 8 rounds, Rody.
Absolutely, yeah, and there's a good fight going on in the teams as well. Although that said, it's going to be dampened a little bit by tonight. It depends on how well Daryl Callahan does filling in for Noah Tara as to how much they can stem the flow. But it is a CRE fight 1-2 at the moment. And look, nothing's guaranteed even at this point in the season. There are only a few rounds left, but there's a lot more points in play in the team's championship. There is, there's the rough head math, but it's nearly 600 odd points at play because first and second. But yeah, you're still very much up for change. I think really it's going to be more the battles we see between CRE and Amped Up CRE if they can keep close to them after tonight. Anti-Coal and SES Light, and we got a similar thing happening in Dev Series with a single car team of Darren Lognan currently trying to chase down. Actually, I think he's almost passing at this point due to how last round went. My team in Super 3, which is a 2-car team. But yeah, some good little battles going on there as well, and we've still got a few rounds to sort those out.
Yes, no, we certainly do have a couple of rounds to sort those out, and we'll wait and see what sort of happens after this round is over, because there are still quite a few things to play out. Heading into tonight, Rody, I knew we obviously had tagged Luke Rosella as the one who was probably going to be the one to beat. What surprised you out of that qualifying group? I mean, the one for me, as I said, probably Ryan Smith being up as high as he was at one stage was up there. Tim Redmond, we haven't seen a lot of Tim in qualifying trim this year, so seeing him up, the pointy end of the standings for me was a bit of a tick as well. Anybody out there that's sort of disappointed? You're a bit disappointed in where they sort of qualified, or you thought they probably should have qualified a little bit better?
I'll be honest, I'm trying to remember where everyone actually ended up in qualifying, because unfortunately, for some reason, my computer's not giving me live timing, so I'm having to go off what's in the back of my head. But look, and I suppose I don't remember who ended up where. Foley, I would have expected probably to end up a little bit further up, but it depends on how much time he's had available to him to put into practice around here. I'll be honest, I'm drawing a blank. I'm just more than else, I'm just sitting here looking at the log, and I was trying to realize why we delayed, and I realized somebody's throwing an issue because everybody's in collision mismatches out of nowhere, which doesn't make any sense because everyone's all in unique cars.
Yeah, I know, it's a bit of a strange thing. So we're just going to sort this out, and we will return and get that done. So just bear with us a moment. We'll get that rectified. Alrighty, I guess that gives us a chance while this is while we're actually doing this. Highlights of the season so far.
How's the season? Would. All right, let me go back and get up the driver's stand. It's going to be a rough refresher of how the season's gone. There's been that much sort of racing. It's weird. There hasn't been racing happening this year, but there has been racing happening this year at the same time. In that the years felt emptier than the last couple of years. I know we've remarked, it feels a little weird at this point where at the back end of, not even at the back end, we're in the middle of August and we're already only a few rounds off the end of the season by virtue of Enduro Cup, by virtue of the padding that we've put into the year to allow for guys to get adequate Enduro Cup practice, given that we're looking at new cars for these guys. We're looking at some new driver pairings. We were definitely floating at one point with running with, and I can't remember if we've settled on it or not, but we were playing in some different race instances as well. All factors that will mean that the more practice we can throw at the guys in Enduro Cup, the better. But yeah, it's been interesting to see how it plays out. But in terms of the season that's gone, I think just looking at the point sheet right now, the variety of winners is a good thing to see, especially moving to a new car. Obviously, the ones that make sense, the likes of the Kurt Stenberg, the Will Devonish, although Will's probably had a couple of lean, had sort of a lean year, relatively speaking, and he's not consistently been like he's been. That's basically been running for the last few years. He's been very good at being the bridesmaid, but never quite being the bride. Obviously, last year he picked up the title, but that was after a lot of years where he had to play second fiddle to other drivers. It was the likes of Foley and temporarily Phil Boak in 2019. It was Kurt Stenberg in 2020. It was Rosella 2021, and then Kurt again in 2022. But he's been able to pick up a few wins this year as well, and obviously he's only 194 points away from Stenberg as well, which is from where we paint Stenberg to be, and you look at his scores, he's first, second, third, up until Gold Coast. I think his worst this year was a fourth. So he's had a really good run there as well. So to be able to keep up with him is pretty good. Tara has just been working on year and year. I think Tara's probably, at least from where I'm last year, I don't remember where we were seeing last year, but I think he's probably going to come out as best improved because he's been able to pick up some race wins, been able to keep himself up the fight. He's arguably, even with being out tonight, he's still going to be the majority points earner for the CRE and CRE amped up racing by CRE that way around. But I like, even as things sit right now, I think he's sitting on double the points of his teammate Lockie Locke. And Locke's not slow. I mean, Locke picked up a Dev Series championship a couple of years ago. He just hasn't quite adapted to the Supercars racing format and to the Supercars themselves quite in the way that some of the other guys who have come up before or since have. But he's still running along pretty well as well. But yeah, Noah, with how he's going pretty well. Walker and Kiddis to get them in has been pretty good to get a new team in. Kiddis still got a bit of practice to pick up, a bit of a load of racecraft. There's a couple of points in the season that have really put a bit of a black mark on his record. But when he's able to get the car under him and get the practice in and get the pace in, he does really well. And Walker, obviously, coming out of I think it was RF2 or it was Assetto Corsa last year.
Yeah.
But coming across to Automobilista with a new platform, with a new car in the Gen 3 cars after only doing a round last year at Adelaide in the old cars. So sitting fourth is pretty good for a first year in. Timmy down in fifth is a bit of a surprise, but look, he's maybe not had the year he wanted. I think Timmy's pace has fallen off a little bit to where it's been in previous years. He's picked up some good results. He picked up some thirds. He's still hanging on for that win. I haven't kept the stat track going this year, but I do still have somewhere in the back of one of my spreadsheets. It is still going to be keeping track of days since last win. I haven't updated it to reflect anything this year. But Tim Redmond's still going to be sitting on the longest from a win, and he's earned the most podiums without a win. And at this stage, I'd like him to get a win because if not, he's going to end up being the Mark Martin of ASR Supercars. In that he's quick enough, but he's never been the quickest. He's just been the second quickest or the third quickest when he's been racing against the quickest guys. And it's really unfortunate because Timmy's got the pace. He just doesn't have that extra tenth that the guys in front of him have. And then, yeah, I think this year it's just sort of slipped from him a little bit. He has missed a couple of rounds here and there as well. He's got 600 odd points behind the front place spot, and he's still a good 300 points off of where Walker is in 4th. And he's actually in a good little bit of no man's land because it's 300 points then back from him to Anthony Green. Green as well, he's been picking up very well coming out of Dev Series, running up in Supercars this year. He's missed a round or two, but he's doing quite well up in 6th. Foley in 7th, a bit of a slip, but again, he's been pretty consistent on pace. It's just that a few guys have moved up ahead of him. Egmanus up to 8th is pretty good because his last year wasn't great for pace. He's still had some rocky moments this year, but he picked up a 2nd at Hamilton. He's picked up some good other results. He picked up a couple of DNFs as well, which swings it back the other way. Cox in 9th as well, another one who's picked up pretty well on pace. He's been knocking on the door of the 10 or the 15 the last couple of years, so to be up in 9th is pretty good. And then Spec, as I said earlier, he missed, as a full-time entrant, he wasn't here until round 5. Prior to that, he only did a couple of guest appearances before that. So to be in the top 10 at all is pretty good. But yeah, there's some really good sales stories come out of this year. Sort of the bad stories, I suppose, for anything since, just the way that the fortune has played out for them, is where the Pixel Sim Sports guys are. With the promise that they were and the effort they were trying to throw into the start of this year, obviously things have conspired, and it's by no, and like they're part of the reason that things have ended up the way they are, and where the drivers are at also. I mean, Rosella's out there to be up the front. Rossi, he's been around a long time. At this point, I think he and Luke and Lewis back when he was racing, they were both just at the point where they just wanted to enjoy their racing. That was their main focus. They weren't trying to be the quickest. They weren't trying to be necessarily the best presented, but Lewis, we all know Lewis's very famous Dev Series livery roast. So it comes from a point of view of trying to present yourself pretty well. But yeah, I think that's probably been the sort of the hard luck story of this year is how much headcanon, as I suppose, was put into how the year might play out, and then just how it ended up playing out by virtue of some factors on track, some factors off track. Ultimately, Lewis Wedding is no longer a part of ASR, at least as things sit right now, so that screws his ability to fill in. And he was actually the prominent points hauler for the team, and still is the prominent points hauler for the team. With Rosella currently, I think, outside the top 20, and with Ross back there in 18th. So as a fill-in driver, he was having a pretty good run. But that's probably the biggest sort of downer story in that. But it's just, yeah, you don't always have the right year, and sometimes things just don't play out.
No, that's right. Some things just aren't meant to be sometimes when it comes to, things doesn't matter whether it's real life or whether it's virtual life, life's not fair. That's the way that the cookie crumbles sometimes. Well, I think a few people will be happy that we are now out on the grid. 24 cars ready to get going here, just waiting on one more. When they have them all on the grid, there we go. And race 19 of the ASR Supercars Championship for 2024. It's not too far away from getting underway. Familiar sight on pole position. Hasn't been this way for a while, Rhodey, but he's got another one in the bag.
Absolutely, yeah. So starting from pole in race number 1 is Luke Rosella, the lead of the Pixel Sim Sports drivers tonight. We were just talking about them earlier, and he is one of the few guys running an alternate livery. I haven't actually picked where this comes from, but he is going to stand out, not in a pink car tonight, he's in a white car with that very big ELF sponsorship across the car as well. We've got the colours playing in there as well, and some gold rims. You don't see those too often. Starting alongside him is Wayne Walker for Wayne's World Motorsports. That's probably been one of his better runs in the last little while. Good to see Walker up in 2nd. Another person good to see up as well in another Mustang is Ryan Smith in 3rd, the SES Dark entry, running the Waters Monster livery tonight. And good to see Ryan up there as well for his best result for qualifying year. Tim Redmond is in 4th for Beyond Racing. He's had, as mentioned, probably not the year he wanted, but 4th is a good run. He's ahead of a couple of the guys that are ahead of him in the championship so far. Will Devonish in 5th. He's running a throwback to the Whistler IMSA GT Mustang, I think this livery is. It's a bit smaller to fit onto a Gen 3 car. It's not quite as an oversized livery as you see on the real car, but still good to see that car out. 6th is Alex Kiddis, again with a strong qualifying performance. Good to see for Alex. That's 2 Wayne's World cars in the top 6. Anthony Green is in 7th, so that brings a second SES car to the top 10, with Kurt Stenberg back in 8th. He's back to his anti-coal livery. He's not running the Senny Rings livery. Hopefully we see that again later in the year. 9th is Zach Brown. Good to see the Pixelated Elf Autosport car here tonight, the number 2, with Daniel Cox in 10th for Zero Answer Motorsport. He's had a pretty good performance as well. In 11th, just missing that top 10, is Mitchell Steele Allison. He's filling in again tonight for Leonard Grossel from Renshaw PBF Blackshaws. Brendan Ross is in 12th. So actually good performance for Rossi based on how his season's been going, so he'll pick up some good points tonight if he can hold himself there. 13th is Brenton Foley. He's the only of the two PBF engineering cars here tonight, with Luke Speck alongside him in XCS Satellite Racing. 15th is Cam Rutledge of Sirians in Motorsport, with Darren Lognan in 16th. He's got some got a bit of a knocker to try and shake after his performance last time out, and he's already found that tyre wall once in qualifying. 17th is Steve Burko of C7 Satellite. He's running his Indigenous round livery again, with Hayden Cupid filling in, or Cuppet, I need to get this right, filling in for Luke Newing at SES Satellite Racing in the Wet Wild livery. Darryl Callahan filling in for Noah Turra, amped up by CRE in 19th. Rory Collins back again in 20th. Koenigsegg Marnus in an alt livery in 21st. Lockie Locken in an alt livery in 22nd. Nathan Ingerson in the Redheads car in 23rd. And Steve Warwick's off the back of the grid for Renshaw PBF Blackshaws in 24th.
Oh, there we go, sorry. 24 cars on the grid, just waiting for one of them to get into place. Not quite sure who it is that we are waiting on, but we're not too far away. Oh, actually, it went a bit quicker than I thought. I thought we were waiting for somebody, but clearly we weren't. We are underway, and this is race number 19 of the ASR Supercars Championship. Luke Rosell has been jumped off the line by the man in second place, Wayne Walker. But Rosella's going to look to the inside here. They're going to run side by side. He's going to get his elbows out. There goes the mirror cap. They're expecting a few of them to go flying tonight. And through Rosella goes back to the lead. So it didn't last too long. It lasted all of about 600 metres, and he's back to the lead of the race and heading up towards turn number 5. A little bit further back, you can see there, it looks like Redmond has managed to get the better of Ryan Smith, and he's done just that. Green has picked up a spot there as well. Alex Kidd is staying in 6th, and Stenberg is challenging Devonish. So I think Devonish has had one of his, what we call trademark terrible starts nowadays, and has fallen back into the clutches of his championship rivals. So immediately, the top two in the championship have found each other, Rhodey.
Absolutely, yeah, it's not a surprise as things sit. Will, not a great start. He did already drop 2 spots there, so maybe just the retarded start, or perhaps playing it smart into turn 1. We did mention earlier that was going to be a big bottle up job through 1, and very easy way to gain spots, very easy way to lose spots, very easy way to lose your car on lap 1 as well. So I think Will Devonish, they're very much, championship protagonist, very much thinking about the bigger picture. You probably open the door to allow a few of the younger guns through, and it makes sense with Kiddis and Smith up there. Slight brief yellow there as well, so I'm going to get some Spec bottle top at
there's actually a bit going on at the hairpin. There's a Higginson that's around, and he's lost a wheel, and it's a localised yellow. Thankfully, it's a localised yellow. Not quite sure what has happened there. We will go back and grab a replay of that, and we'll see what's going on. Here we go. First time tonight, it is the Paint Doctor replay. Now, I think Luke Speck had a moment down here at the final corner. We're watching Higginson. Now, I'm not sure if there was some contact or if Speck got the inside wall on his own, and then what happened to Higginson? Oh, he got too close to the wall and got grabbed. So good evasive action by everybody else, but for Higginson, no margin for error for him, and the wall bites on lap number 1.
Yeah, that was really unfortunate to just grab one of those spots in the wall. And yeah, it's just this track that's lined by the walls, but very much you can't go near those walls. They've been put together a little bit, I suppose, a little bit more haphazardly than perhaps Gold Coast. But at the end of the day, I mean, it's the walls that did the track. You don't go around running on the track anyway. So just really unfortunate for Higginson there. Luckily, he's still going to have race number 2 later in the night, so his team's going to be focusing on trying to attach that left front wheel back to that Redheads Mustang.
No, that's right. We had it happen a couple of times in the development series round, didn't we, Roddy? There was a few people that were a little bit lazy with their steering inputs. I think the most notable one of those was Melanie Smith in the second race. She actually was trundling down the pit lane and just let her car veer off to the side of the pit lane and then into the wall. There's a yellow flag now here in sector 1.
Speaking of snagging the wall, Rosella got the wall in the exit of the water fountain, and it dropped him 4 spots.
Well, there you go. So that's what the yellow flag was for. As we were just watching Zach Brown there, they came up to the pit, the scene of the accident, and I think again it might be a case of second verse same as the first. And off we go again. Our Paint Doctor replay is going to give us the indication here. And which wall did he get too close to? Oh no, that's exactly what sort of Luke Speck did. Whee! Oh, and that he's going to be in some trouble for that, I think. That's a little bit of an issue there, and having to get back onto the track. But yeah, you get a bit close to those walls and you get turned around. That's a driving mistake. I mean, granted, Rosella hasn't been racing regularly in the series for majority of the season. He's only done, I think it's about his third round overall, and there is a safety car, and I think it might be for Zach Brown, who's down an escape road somewhere. And yes, there's actually a bit of a kerfuffle going on at the final corner, and I think we may have lost a few drivers in this.
We lost Luke Speck as well. He's out already.
Yeah, so Luke Speck is out. Lockie Locke's gone down a lap. I'm not sure if that's accurate. There's a bit of flurry of activity in the pits. This has actually come at a relatively decent time for a few people. There's some pit lane activity going on at the moment, because there's a rumour there's a few people may not be able to necessarily make it on the fuel, on the tyres in this race. It was quite marginal what was going on there, but there was all sorts of activity going on at the final corner, and I think we're about to see what exactly happened here. So the first safety car of the night. Let's go to the Paint Doctor replay. This is going to reveal what's happened to a couple of drivers, and I think it's Luke Speck and Curtis Egmanis caught up in this. This is at the end of the back straight. This is going down to turn 8. A little bit deep under brakes for Speck. Too deep under brakes for Speck. Locked the inside front. And, yep, okay. A couple of cars with some contact and cars out of business. So that is the reason why we have a safety car on the circuit to sort that little bit of a mess out. And there are pit stops that are taking place now. This is rather interesting with how this has come about. So those that have stopped, you can see there, Collins, Rutledge, you've got Locke, Egmanis, who was caught up in that accident, and Zach Brown. They've all taken the opportunity to stop here. Now they will get out in front of the safety car, so that will keep them on the lead lap. Safety car's just coming around the final corner now. So these guys have all timed that stop very well. They're going to have a nice set of tyres here going into the second stance of this race. Fuel-wise now, there's not going to be a problem. We bring up our Pallet Control Solutions race facts for this round. You can see fuel burn, we were estimating was going to be somewhere around 4.2 to 4.6 litres a lap based on what we were seeing drivers doing in practice, but we've seen a few drivers that are getting sneaking up to 4.8, which is putting it sort of borderline for race 2, which is the longer distance race. Not so much of an issue fuel-wise in race 1, but race 1 is more so about making the soft tyres last, if you can make them last the 16 laps. I mean, we didn't even really get a true read on it in development series, Rody, purely because there were so many drivers that were caught up in safety cars that it basically curtailed all the green flag running, so we never got a true read on how far they could make those tyres go.
Yeah, so I think based on how things are looking, it's going to be very similar play out to what we saw in race 1. So this was for Dev Series at the Gold Coast Tyre Management. That one was on quite a few safety cars. This was so far just the one. And look, credit to the guys, they made it further than the Dev Series guys before triggering the first one, and it was for a pretty legitimate reason in that it was 3 or 4 cars piled up into a tyre barrier. But yeah, they're not getting it this far. But yeah, from the notes, a bit of time management would be necessary. They're going to risk popping a tyre. But I think with this safety car, for those guys that are pitting, they can keep pushing the rest of the run. For those guys that have stayed out, they can nurse, but they're not going to have to quite baby the tyres as aggressively as they thought they might have to, especially if the safety car keeps going on as it is going. I think we're on a 2 or 3 lap safety car. So the longer the safety car goes, the more it plays into those that are going to try and stay out, and the more it potentially hinders those that have pitted. I did just check. Lockie Locke is a lap down legitimately. He had his own crash the lap before the safety car and had to trundle back around into the pit lane. Actually, at the same tyre barrier as Speck did, but not quite as hard, and hit it by himself without getting any assistance from any cars around him. So he probably didn't stack up as much damage as Speck did, which is why Speck is retired. That's why Locke is still running 1 lap down.
There you go. Well, I did see the 2-minute 35 lap time that came about with everything. As we go back to green flag racing here, a couple of penalties handed out by the game, which is going to be cleared, but it's a good restart. In actual fact, I think Redmond might have been a little bit asleep at the wheel there as the restart occurred, because now he's coming under some fire from Anthony Green, who's got a second wind here, but then they've got Rosella behind him, so they're going to have to be careful.
Yeah, so this is the next concern is if how these guys go on this first lap post restart. A lot of jumbled order, especially with Rosella still back down there in fourth. He's currently giving Anthony Green a bit of a hurry up, but he's going to try and work his way through this pack to get back to the likes of Wayne Walker. Also, Kurt Stenberg still tucked in there with Will Devonish. He's actually gone past Will Devonish before the safety car, or if it was just after the safety car, it was in the last stint or the last sector or so. But they're still pretty well tied together as well. Stenberg just trying to pull away a little bit, trying to get up to the back of Kiddis, and Devonish at the moment is struggling to pull away from Daniel Cox.
No, he definitely is struggling to pull away from Cox at the moment. We're ensconced in this battle here at the moment because Redmond seems to have cleared away from Green, but Green hasn't cleared away from Rosella, and there he goes. So that's that job done. So he's now on the comeback trail a little bit, trying to get himself back up to the front of the field. Right, off we go. Through a bit more now. So now on to lap number 7 of the race. So getting close to the half distance mark here. Here's that battle you were talking about with Cox unable to shake Mitchell Steele-Allison here. And down the inside, I think Allison might get this job done. And Cox has got to leave him some room. That's a little bit of a squeeze job there. And they're going to fight and argue this up to the water fountain. And probably that's the smarter move, I think, there from Steele-Allison. He knows he's got pace over the number 94 machine, but he's just got to learn to use it wisely, Brody.
Absolutely, yeah. And for Steele-Allison, he's just here to fill in tonight. He's here to try and pick up some points for the team. But he's very much not a championship of his own to focus on. And he was here last week, so he knows how this track will bite you and how you need to exercise some patience in your moves.
Yes, that's right. So now there's a little bit of breathing room for Cox, but it's only about an extra 2 car lengths. It's not much in it at all. You look a bit further ahead, then there's this bit of a freight train that's starting to go on behind Anthony Green. So he leads his SES stablemate in Ryan Smith. Oh, they're both locked up. Oh, they were so lucky there not to get the wall at the end of turn 8. They both had a front inside lock up there. And then the couple behind started to get really interested. Alex Kiddis is getting rather interested in Ryan Smith, and there's been a change of position there between Devonish and Stenberg. They've swapped around, so that's important in terms of the championship picture at the moment. Will needs to be taking points off of Kurt at this rate in proceedings in the season. He's not going to do that by giving up the positions like that. He needs every point he can get at the moment.
Yeah, well, he hadn't made the move on him earlier, but he was at one point. Kurt was pulling away. I think what's happened though is Will finally managed to break away from Daniel Cox. A little bit of lag there for Ryan Smith. I just think I've just watched Ryan Smith lag out. Is what I think it's been. Oh, no, he's come back at a really bad time in front of the cars.
Yeah, I think that'll be a game glitch for him. We're just watching on our other camera, but yes, I believe that will be some sort of a game glitch for what's gone on there. We're actually watching on board with Hayden Cupid, who's trying to hunt down Darren Lognan at the moment in the Vortex Racing Machine entry as they go round turn 6 and then head up under the Beyond Electrical Bridge up towards the turn for Bay Street and then down the back here, down Pine Avenue. Oh, there goes the mirror cover. That's going to be a few of those. This is like Gold Coast all over again, with the mirror covers going flying. Foley wants a piece of the action. Just up ahead, he's getting rather interested in Mitchell Steele-Allison, who holds on for the moment. So that's a good exchange. This is critical here because Foley doesn't want to be caught out wide for too long, and Lognan went to the inside of Ross, who now cuts the nose off of Cupid and doesn't want to lose a position out of that. So you've got to be very careful at that final corner. It's a big, wide expanse there. You're so tempted to go wide and just carry some momentum, but you have to get down to the apex and take it away here. Cupid gets Brendan Ross down at turn 1.
Yeah, I was trying to put together what happened in the last corner there. So car somebody.
No, it's a localized yellow. I think it might be for Darryl. I think it's Darryl Callaghan or Ryan Smith, one of the two. Probably, possibly Smith. They've cleared.
Yeah, the one I was going to make is I think part of Darren's pass to the hairpin came as a result of a little bit of incidental front-rear contact from Hayden Cupid that very much pushed Darren into the corner, and he could have very much sort of half made his mind up for him as to whether he was going for the dive on Ross, and thankfully Ross was pretty accommodating and left him the space. But then, Cupid, the same thing down at 1, just went for that dive, and again, Ross was pretty generous to it. I think maybe Ross isn't feeling he's got the pace maybe quite at this moment, or again, again, bigger picture. I mean, these two are both spending, these two being Pato and Darren, both in their first 2 years in Supercars. Rossi's been here since pretty much the start. He knows, where to put the fight up and where to maybe lay down and just play more for a little bit. He's hung on the back of them, and he's probably allowing them to make a mistake further on in this race, because we can already see in just the battle between the teammates in front between Foley and Steele Allison, there's still a lot of fight left in this race, and if you can hold on to keep your car straight, you're making some spots.
Absolutely. Foley there giving some chase to Steele Allison. So this is a nice little battle. These are the last couple of spots inside the top 10. They head into the water fountain for the 10th time. Now, what of the drivers that decided they wanted to stop under the safety car? Where have they all come out? So the likes of Igmanis, Brown, Collins and and Rutledge. The best of them is Rutledge in 15th place at the moment. So they haven't been able to make the headway that they needed to. The tyre offset is probably not as great as what they were hoping. The tyre offset probably has been erased by the safety car as this little gaggle heads up into turn number 7. So getting close to the front now as well. I think Roselle is starting to reel in the race leader Walker. So the margins come down from about a second a lap ago. It's now around about 6 or so tenths, if that. When they get to the end of lap 10, we'll get the update across the line there. It's actually 8 tenths. So he's raising that margin a little bit at a time. And this will be a rather interesting battle for the next couple of laps. In striking distance, you probably expect that Roselle will be on the rear tail of the 217 Mustang in probably around a lap's time, maybe 2, depending where the strengths and weaknesses are around this circuit. I think we haven't really probably taken a really good look, Rhodey, at where each of the drivers have got their strengths and weaknesses around this circuit, because the straights are pretty much a given. It's really how much momentum you can carry through the corners.
As also as a bit of an example of, example of it was Rosella snagging the wall earlier in the race, was how much you want to push it, how close you want to lay to get to those walls. Something that the drivers learned at Gold Coast and have learned at various points this year, that these cars are a little bit wider than the cars they raced 12 months ago, particularly in the rear, and it does catch you on apex.
Oh, mistake.
A wall overlaps.
Yep.
A little bit of a short break there for Walker has allowed Rosella to catch up, and he might actually potentially try and go for a move at 1 here.
Yeah, so I think you're right. I'm just having a look at the lap times there, just the sector times. So Rosella about a 10th quicker sector 1. He was 2 tenths quicker sector 2, which actually comes up before the braking zone for turn 8. And then that bit of a braking move, the long brake pedal for Wayne Walker at turn 8 was rather costly, because Rosella's all over him now and heading down into turn number 1. So I did say probably be about a lap, maybe 2 to be in striking distance. Well, he's there now.
Yeah, so he's just looking. He backed out. Rosella backed out of any move at 1. Probably just really trying to get into Wayne's head, trying to force him into making a mistake. Because that's, I mean, you can pass here just from raw pace, but very much easy to make a pass as of any track if the guy in front of you makes a mistake and it very much invites the exchange to happen. But yeah, he's just sitting there. He's still got a couple of laps left. He doesn't have to go for a dive bomb just yet. I imagine if Walker makes a little mistake there, who knows, right on the inside, because the opportunity will present itself. But at this point, he's just going to sit there, just keep pressuring the 217. They haven't raced together a whole lot this year, just combined with where they've been at pace-wise in amongst themselves. But also, Rosella's not made every round this year. And he's setting up a move now into the 3rd sector, and he's going to make that work and actually very much eliminate the possibility for a cutback as well by virtue of the way the track goes. So Rosella's next threat is maybe the hairpin, but I think he's good. He's managed to avoid that apex wall, so he's going to be consolidating 1st place. Yeah,
very nicely defended into the hairpin as well there. It made Walker go wide, which sort of took the avenue away of the potential cutback coming out of the final corner, and then preventing a run up here into turn number 1. This will probably be the last real proper attempt if Walker could get close, but it's not quite close enough. Rosella so good on the brakes there into turn number 1. That should be job done. Elsewhere, what's been going on is Stenberg has moved himself up into 3rd place, so there's been a bit of moving and shaking inside the top half a dozen spots. There's been a few drivers have a bit of trouble as well. So Darryl Callaghan out, Ryan Smith, who was running 8th at one point, is out. That's moved Devonish up to 4th behind Stenberg on the road. Green down to 5th. Then this is a bit of a surprise. Mitchell Steele Allison up into 6th place along with Foley. So he's they still kept going. Big casualty seems to be Tim Redmond, who's dropped down to 8th place. We haven't got a read on what's happened to him in the last few laps or so while we've been watching the battle out in front. There's a 2-minute 9 lap that was sort of at the end of the safety car period, it looks like. That might have been the final safety car lap, but there's actually a 1-minute 34 last time around. So, Steele Allison, while we're looking at the timing screens, into the wall and potentially out of business. Now, this is what we're talking about. Got to be careful because you come around a corner blind, the yellow flag out, and you have to be mindful of what's going on. Safety car called.
Yep, they've both got going, but it has triggered a safety car that's given Foley some damage. I think that's hasn't dropped him a position, thankfully, with where Tim was positioned and the fact that there was a yellow out, but it's dropped Allison out of the 10. He's now down to 12th, and they're both going to have damage that they're probably going to consider repairing, I think, at this point, because they're very lucky not to kill either car there.
Well, here we go. Replay, as we can see here. Wasn't that far off the apex, but it's just, again, that little bit too extra speed. Foley just caught some of the car there. Good avoidance by Redmond, good avoidance by Cupid, Ross as well. But what we were talking about earlier is that when those yellow flags are out, you've got to be paying attention that something's around the corner that you can't see. And a few drivers, Foley really had no option. He had nowhere to go there. So he was next man on the scene and just had to put up with what he did. But Cupid and Ross, they were the ones that came around the corner, and they came, importantly for them, they came around the corner shallow. So they weren't fully out to the left-hand side. They gave a bit of room away on the odd chance that there was a car sitting in the fence, and they guessed absolutely correctly.
It's already happened. Oh no, that'll be it. Okay. That's potentially the other part of the safety car, actually. I've just noticed as well. I just noticed we lost Darren Logan, and I was wondering why that was. I've just gone back in a replay to find that he spun himself at the water fountain and trying to recover from the spin at the water fountain. He drove onto the water fountain itself and got beached. Got beached.
Yeah. So that's a self-inflicted incident there for him. So we lose a couple more drivers out of this one. So it's not been as safety car riddled as the development series round, but it has taken a little bit of the strategy element away of it, Brady. That's the piece that I think a few people are looking at going, okay, well, some drivers were hedging their bets on whether or not the tyres were going to make it. Well, the tyres have made it by virtue of the safety car making an appearance, but this could actually be sent into overtime now. This is the interesting part of this equation. Big field that's bunched up under a restart condition again, and possibly the prospect of going beyond the scheduled 16-lap distance into an extra lap at the bare minimum. It might be even more depending how long the safety car stays out for, but whether or not people are prepared for this or not is the next question.
Yeah, it depends on how cheeky people have been with their fuel calculations, if they expected to go for 16 laps, expected to go for 16 laps including one safety car, including two safety cars, and whether they thought, oh, you know what, we'll try and make a faster car, we'll pull 5 litres, pull 10 litres out. At this point, if you were that driver, you'd be sweating a little bit, because the potential this goes a couple of laps longer than the scheduled distance, even if it's under the safety car for most of it. Yeah, you might put yourself in a bit of trouble. But the other thing as well is going to be where these guys are at on tyres. We did mention the tyre management is going to more or less be out the window at this point, given that we're into our second safety car. But they're still going to feel a little bit questionable at the front. And the question is maybe Walker being a bit more conservative with his tyres. Was Zeller maybe pushing a little bit harder? Was it the other way around? You know, where does Stenberg, where does Devonish fit into that as well? The likes of even Anthony Green back there in 5th. Maybe he's been the best conservative of the lot for his tyres. I mean, look, it's impossible Foley back there in 6th. It'd be unlikely, given what we know of Foley and his proclivity for using tyres. But look, it could very much still come down to a point where it's not going to be tyres go on you, but very much, you know, you just don't have the tyres when you get to turn 1, or you don't get the run out of the corners that all the other guys get. Although what matters is we are still going around another lap, so we are going to go at least 1 lap over the scheduled distance. We are currently on lap 16. The safety car is still on track, so we're going to get at least 1 more lap over the scheduled race distance.
That's right.
Yeah, we're now into the overtime. We're now into the point where if anyone was cheeky with their fuel, going to have to start being real conservative with it.
Well, I wouldn't expect that the people should be too bad on fuel, because you normally fuel for the full entire race distance anyway and a little bit more in reserve. But you do get some of that fuel back under safety car condition because you're not using as much. So I would expect that people should be more than right on fuel if they haven't been into the lane already. But the real question is a few drivers, whether or not they've, as you said, they've used up some tyres a little bit too much, or whether they've got a little bit left in reserve, will decide whether or not they make up positions in this race. Now, in the longer distance race that we had in the development series, you did see that a few drivers that did push the limits of trying to make the soft tyre last on the full entire race distance, and it did last, but because the safety car made several appearances, it turned the what could have been a strategy race for pit stops into not needing a pit stop, and those that actually did come in and take some tyres, their tyres were significantly better at the back end of the race compared to everybody else, and it ended up turning the tide, and actually Darryl Callaghan was overtaken by Steve Burko for the win in that final race. I'd suggest we're going back to green flag racing this time around, because Rosella's got control of the field very early, which is a good sight to see, and he is holding them up heading down towards turn number 8. Now, just to remember the rules when it comes to the overtime restarts here. The restart procedure is exactly the same, but you will get one shot at a green-white checkered finish, and then if it doesn't end, it will be under a safety car finish. So round the final corner we go for the 16th time. We are officially into overtime in the 19th race of the ASR Supercars Championship. They're still coming round the final corner. It's Rosella from Walker, then Stenberg, and then Devonish, and off we go for a one-lap dash, 3.1 kilometres remaining.
Yeah, so Rosella picking up her drive-through. I imagine they're framing for grabbing the field as early as he did. That will be cleared though. But yeah, he's made a break away from the front of the field. Walker's happy to go with him, and he's doing a pretty good job there. Actually, Stenberg, more of the cork of the bottle there, with Walker behind with a yellow as well. So something's happened at one, but we stay green for the actual race.
It was actually Redmond. There's actually a bit of a collision that's been going on at the back part of the circuit. Sorry, we were actually watching the wrong battle there while we were trying to clear the penalties. So top 4 have escaped, and they are pretty much set in stone as they sit right now, heading up to turn number 6. It looks like Redmond was the unfortunate party that may have been either A-turned or grabbed a wall on the restart there at the exit of turn number 1. We'll get more on that at the end of the race, but setting sail for home here. 4 corners to go for Rosella with Walker in tow. And is Devonish going to try and make a late lunge here at Stenberg at the back end of this race? He's definitely thinking about it. Last opportunity is going to come up at the hairpin, but I don't think he's going to risk it. There's no point trying to risk it for only maybe 4 or 5 points at this stage, given you've fallen behind. You're best to just count your chickens before they hatch in the next race and worry about the next race in a handful of minutes' time. But Rosella the win ahead of Walker, then Stenberg, and then Devonish. We just saw her get across the line there. Rosella comfortably able to get back to the front. Green home in 5th with Foley in 6th. Good result for him. Cupid, he'd be happy with the 7th place finish ahead of Daniel Cox. Then Mitchell Steele-Allison, and then Alex Kidder. So he was up as high as 6th at one point, so he's faded a little bit late in the race there, as we've got a handful of other drivers just bringing themselves to the line at the moment there. Curious to see what happened to Tim Redmond at that restart there, Roddy. We'll have to go back and just pick that up, because we're watching the battle, actually watching the wrong battle at the restart, so I apologise for that. But Redmond was asked about after facing into a fence. I'm not quite sure what the situation was there, whether there was a bit of an accidental contact or something. We're about to get the replay of that now and give you an idea of what happened. So, very lucky that the incident, whatever happened, wasn't actually triggered another safety car there. So, there was a big moment for Foley there. There's some compression locking. There was all sorts going on. So, I think Foley had a compression lock. Redmond had a lock. Rutledge lost it as well, or Burko was in contact with him, and then there was a bit of stacks on the mill. So that's actually really lucky that didn't amalgamate to another safety car. So there was at least 3 or 4 cars involved there in what can only be described as a big kerfuffle down at turn 1.
Yeah, and that's what I was alluding to. And thankfully, I think we only end up with one in this first race at least. Touch wood for race 2. But yeah, it's an easy checkup spot because you can easily go 3 or 4 cars wide there, and it backers you up to a 2-car wide next to the corner.
Well, there's a bit of, I don't know what's going on at the final corner. Oops, sorry. I don't know what's going on at the final corner here. But there was a Foley facing into a fence. I think someone maybe tried to do a drift around the final corner and got stuck. I'm not going to go and look at the replay of that because I can probably imagine it was Foley trying to do a drift around the final corner and got stuck. There we go. So, end of race number 1. Finally, we get there after about 28 minutes worth of racing, and we will get ready to do it all again. But this time we double the race distance. It goes from being a 50 kilometre race to a 100 kilometre race, which means that we go from 16 laps to 32 laps, and we then have the interesting decision of, yes, you can't make it on a full tank of fuel, and you definitely can't make it on one set of tyres if the green flag running is a large amount of running. So we'll see what happens there. But in the meantime, Rody, what did you make out of that first race? Because there was a lot to digest in that race, if I'm being honest. There was a lot.
There was, yeah. Look, I will say, look, credit to the guys, and I did speak to a few of them before the session started, and said, look, hey guys, look, we are legitimately a little bit concerned from the point of view of the broadcast that, look, we might end up in a situation where we've got to do the same as what you and Locke had to do last week, and fill the air for 3 or 4 or 5 safety cars. And the only thing I could easily pick up as being the difference for that that would result in that being a lesser effect would be the caliber and the average caliber of the drivers being better. And this is not to slight the guys in Dev Series, but ultimately you're in Dev Series for a reason. Sometimes it's for lack of pace, sometimes it's where maybe the racecraft isn't quite up to snuff. But generally speaking, the caliber of driver is going to be lower in a development series over the Premier Series. So nothing against the guys in Dev Series, and I say this as somebody who's been a permanent fixture in Dev Series the last couple of years. Maybe I'm the reason Dev Series has a lower average skill rating, but yeah, that was the only thing that was really going to easily quantifiably make this a better outcome for the Supercars guys. And look, generally it was. There was still a couple of incidents, still a couple of moments where maybe it was individual lack of ability, but generally it was more just little slips of the mind which happened to the best. I mean, we saw Rosella spitting himself out off the wall at the exit of the fountain, so clearly the best can still do it. But really, that was more. It was just little things creeping in, and little bit mistakes, little lapse in concentration. But there was no straight out driving errors that we really tend to see too much of. I think I maybe caught one earlier with which was the reason Darren ended up in the water fountain. His recovery put him in the water fountain, but he didn't spin himself out. He actually got assistance. But aside from that, everything looked like it was pretty good. Everyone was pretty smart about it in knowing, where to and where to not do X thing at Y point on this track. There were exceptions. I mean, Tim Redmond's and co.'s death at turn 1 on the last lap, and the kerfuffle at the hairpin post race, as well as a couple of moments that involved tyre barriers and cars getting thrown back out in front of traffic. But generally speaking, everyone was pretty well behaved. We only got 2 safety cars, which was, again, pretty good. Everyone got some clean running in. And it's one of those things, safety cars breed safety cars, but if once you start clean running also breeds clean running. And they took full advantage of that, and we had a good half a race before a safety car came out again.
No, that's exactly right. And look, the part of the puzzle that I think we've looked at over the last sort of 2 rounds of both, or right now this round, and the previous round, and both development series rounds, is the silly part is that most of the issues that we've caused the safety car are self-inflicted. So they're from somebody causing a mistake that then leaves people behind them with no alternative. I think there's only, out of what's been triggering them, there's only been a small number of incidents where it's somebody running into somebody else that has kicked off the need for a safety car. So it's a bit of a weird thing. You look at the number of safety cars and you say, well, what's everybody been doing? But in reality, it's people that don't want to leave a margin for error. It's people that want to push the limits a little bit too hard, and people that don't give the tracks the respect that they deserve because of the kind of nature of the tracks that they are, being street circuits are rather unforgiving. And look, you know what? I look ahead to what still lies ahead for the series, and we still have a trip to Adelaide to come. And that's a street circuit, and it's a little bit of a wider street circuit, a bit more suited to the supercars, but people know that circuit very, very well, yet we still do end up with the odd safety car here or there, and we have seen a few of them in years gone past. So not saying that it's the end all of everything, street circuits being the ultimate reason why that happens, but it's just people's respect for those tracks. I think that that's the interesting thing that I take away from this.
Yeah, there are some circuits that just are guaranteed not ever going to work for a supercar. I mean, or for a lot of racing categories. I mean, an easy one, and I'll just pull it straight out of the hat. It's been thrown up a couple of times in conversation over the past couple of weeks, and it comes every once in a while in ASR. Macau, yeah, that would work. The hairpin, if nothing else, would definitely not work. But generally, that track is, if you just had the first sector, great. That thing's like three cars wide. The rest of it, good luck. Another one people have been throwing up as an idea for tracks for social series is Azerbaijan or Baku. Again, first sector, last sector of that track, not too bad. Castle section, good luck. Sometimes it is just to be the track, and the track and that car combination will not work. I mean, you pick some very favorable tracks, and then you throw, like, for example, Long Beach isn't too bad. You throw a supercar at it, it's a bit questionable for the size of a supercar. If you would ever bring truck racing here, not steam super trucks, but actual proper truck racing here, good luck. I imagine you'd find that the concrete walls are not nearly as heavy as you think they are. But it's one of the things where, like, I was concerned off of Dev Series on how the upcoming social series where we're running Aussie racing cars. I'm concerned about how that would go around here. And a little quite quick plug for that. That's starting next Wednesday, Long Beach round 1, Autodromo Riccardo Paletti in Italy for round 2. And there are going to be some guest spots if you want to come and race. We got 27 entries at the moment, which is pretty good. But there was concern about how, or at least from me, about how well we would do especially as a social series, especially as something where it's meant to be a bit of fun. We're not necessarily all going in there super sweaty about it. How Long Beach would perform for Aussie racing cars. We actually ran a test night on Wednesday. And the feedback generally was that, look, there were some bits of Long Beach that wouldn't play too well, but it wasn't so much of a bad experience that it would come off the calendar. And that's sort of the I suppose the impetus where you think about it is the experience bad enough for it to move off the calendar? Probably not. And like Long Beach isn't the only track where you run into these sort of issues. Gold Coast round prize, another one. Some of it is just going to be down to the attitude of the drivers, both how they approach their racing and how they approach that track specifically. I can name 2 key examples of times we've been to street circuits, which should be problems and have been problems, but for the reasons I'm about to list weren't problems that one time we went there. So I think it was 2022 Dev Series at Hamilton. We all went into Hamilton expecting a multi-car pile-up and an entire race of safety cars, and so we all drove as if there was going to be a multi-car pile-up and as if we were going to be the reason for that pile-up. And so consequently, there was never a pile-up, and we never had a safety car. There was definitely still some issues of bad driving, people being a bit too desperate and having people off, but there wasn't at any point a safety car to trigger it. And Hamilton's one we figured, yeah, there's guaranteed to be one. Gold Coast, another good example. Nearly every year at Gold Coast we had a safety car. The one time we didn't was where we ran an Enduro at Gold Coast, where on cards we thought, oh, well, based on how everyone drives in a sprint race, we're going to be lucky to have 3 cars finish. It was probably, and at least definitely for the mileage that was taken, it was the safest and the cleanest race we've had at Gold Coast, because the cars had to make 68 laps. They had to make the cars last that long. Whereas for Gold Coast, normally the distance is 20 laps. So, you can bomb it a bit more and get away with it, but people had to be smart with their decisions with a 68 lap race. And so for the most part, they were. And boom, Gold Coast worked. So sometimes it's picking the right format for the track. I mean, I think same sort of thing around here, maybe for the Dev Series guys more so. Perhaps maybe a longer format would work for them here. But at the same time, maybe for the Dev Series guys, maybe just with where the aptitude is at, maybe something like Long Beach isn't so much a viable track. And it's one of those things where it's perhaps a wider decision where, look, something works for Supercars, doesn't work for Dev Series. Works for Dev Series, doesn't work for Supercars. It needs to be something where maybe in future, for something like tracks in general, tracks in general, it needs to be a consideration of, will this work for both categories? And if this doesn't, should we still include this on the calendar? Is it within the margin of error we're going to allow for, or especially like in this case, I mean, we look at last year, international round, Watkins Glen, the only issue we had was headlights kicking everyone out of the first race because of a server issue. But otherwise, Watkins Glen went perfectly well. It had some great strategy to it, had some real cheeky fun where I think it was Rossi was banned from qualifying, but still came out on track to give Lewis Wedding a toe to the line, or it was vice versa, and very nearly the pixel car on the front row. It was a very well executed bit of strategy. I think we closed that loophole on them not long after, but the loophole existed for them and they took full advantage of it. It's not unlike Ross Chastain running the wall last year at what was it, Martinsville or whatever. But same sort of thing as that. But like Watkins was great. A lot of people are familiar with it. They've touched it on Forza, have touched it on iRacing, touched it elsewhere. The guys on iRacing already run Supercars there. It's one of the Supercars series tracks they use a lot is Watkins. Really great racing there. Works for both categories. A little bit more chaos again in Dev Series, but that's kind of just Dev Series at this point. It's Supercars with 5% extra chaos. So it's one of those things where that worked pretty well. At least based on Dev Series, it didn't work so well here this year. Based on Race 1, pretty reasonable for a street circuit. I'm not going to say this is as a loss of a track, but I imagine some drivers probably aren't a fan of the track itself, but that's less the track, maybe more just the version we had, and ultimately we did what we could with it. This is more work than was supposed to be put into a track that we're going to use once, and probably once only as things are going. Ultimately there wasn't a justifiable base version for us to be able to work with, and we can create tracks from scratch, but the time needed to do that was way much more than was available. And again, we're using this track once. We're not building this track from scratch to use it once. So that's right. It's part of it is this version of the track has done some things. I mean, it took Higo out in race 1. Obviously, it spun Melody in the pit lane in Dev Series. It got a few other people at various points, and obviously the guys that pipe themselves in the fountain as well. But I think that's really more of a skill issue than a design issue. I think we really should struggle to get out of a garden bed or a flower bed. It's a better base version of the track. Maybe that would fix some issues. Better approach to the track would probably fix some issues. Different format might fix some issues. Some of it, though, sometimes you can't get out of it. But I think, generally speaking, Dev Series, look, lessons have been learnt, and that's what matters. For Supercars, things are going pretty well so far. Touch the one bit of wood in my room, that stays the case for race number 2.
Yeah, no, I agree. And look, just so everybody's clear, I guess if you're a bit sort of curious at home as to how Long Beach actually came about, the same way that how the last international round, Watkins Glen, last year came about, it was a vote between all the drivers from both series. So some tracks were offered up. Last year there was 6 tracks picked and they picked the best one. This year we opened it up a little bit more, and then we took a handful of those tracks that were there, that were the popular ones that were suggested, and then they all voted on between all the ones that were left. And the ones that came out of it were the ones that they picked Long Beach, and the stipulation was there had to be a version of the circuit that was available that was race ready. Well, there wasn't one that was offered up by anybody, so we ended up having to locate one, and wasn't as close to what we would have liked it to be. But there was quite a fair bit of work to be done to it, like more than just the ad board signage, which we do want to give a big thank you to all the sponsors that have continued to help us out this year. So Cameron, Rutledge Electrical, Beyond Electrical over in New Zealand, Pallet Control Solutions, and the Paint Doctor. We really do thank you very much for everything that you guys have done. The same way we'd like to thank Higginson Media Engineering and 444 Designs for the work that they've been doing this year. Daniel Cox Designs as well for all the bits and pieces that he does for the series as well. So it was just a bit more than just putting out the broadcast signage. There was actually a full new track limits file that was redone. There was a fair bit of testing to be done, and unfortunately we couldn't get everything completed the way that we would have liked it to have been done. But that's just the nature of, I guess, what happens nowadays with people, that they have time to do certain things, but they don't have the time to do absolutely everything. And we all need to appreciate that people turn up, they give up their time to broadcast, they give up their time to race, they give up their time to organise things, and they give up their time to construct and to make, and to do what I would call, Rody, be selfless, right? Everything that the ASR admin team has done for the last 7 years, regardless whether it's putting on broadcasts, putting on race events, designing new cars, building new tracks, it is a selfless act. It is something that is done out of the goodness of those people's hearts because they genuinely enjoy what they do and want to spread that around and share it around with everybody else that enjoys the sim racing as much as they do. And I would like, if there's one thing that I think I'd like everyone to take out of it is that don't lose sight of that sort of a picture. We want people to enjoy what we do. We just don't want people to take it for granted. So that's why when you look through the ASR Discord and you see that there's not a lot of people here nowadays, it's because we know that the people that are in the Discord are the ones that are trustworthy enough and that keep coming back because they genuinely do respect the work and appreciate the work that the team puts in behind the scenes. And that's why they continue to give up their time round after round to come and race in the series. And we do want to thank them as much as we thank everybody that supports the series, everybody that watches the series, everybody that races in the series, and everyone that does everything to make this possible. Thank you very, very much to all of you. Race number 2, about to get in the books. 32 laps on the on board this time, so double the distance. And we start race number 2 in the same finishing order that we ended race number 1. So Luke Rosella on the pole, ahead of Wayne Walker. Bit of an interesting situation with them in race number 1, where Rosella's spin and the rejoin will be a rather interesting situation to look at after the fact. Kurt Stenberg moved himself up from 8th place start to 3rd, so that's good for his points in the championship. Devonish up to 4th after starting, I think it was 5th and dropping back a little bit, but ultimately has dropped a couple of points to Stenberg, but he's got a chance to get those points back in this race coming up. Anthony Green in 5th. So he had a good quiet run. He was up the top half a dozen spots for most of that first race. Brent Foley in the PBF Race Engineering Camaro behind him in 6th. Good run for Foley. Hayden Cupid very quietly went along there in Luke Newing's number 17. So that's a very, very nice haul of points for him. Kept his nose clean through most of that race. Sans a few mirror covers. Then you have Daniel Cox starting in 8th position. The CRE Anson Motorsport number 94. Mitchell Steele Allison out of 9th. He's in for Leonard Grossel this round. Ahead of Alex Kiddis in 10th, who started a little bit higher and dropped back through the field. Cam Rutledge will start 11th in the CRE Electrical at number 015, ahead of Curtis Igmanis, who started 21st in that last race and found himself moving up to 12th. So he was in the wars a little bit too. So that's a good recovery from him. Let's see if he can get a few more spots throughout this 32-lap race coming up. Steve Burko starting 13th, just behind him, alongside Zach Brown, the only of the pixelated Elf Auto Sport Camaros here tonight, with Rory Collins in 15th. Tim Redmond, the big story in that one, having started up the top end of the grid, falling down to 16th and getting caught out along with a couple of other drivers on the final tour. Steve Warwick starting 17th ahead of Brendan Ross, then finishing up with Lockie Lock in the first CRE amped up racing machines, ahead of Darren Lognan in the Vortex Racing entry. Ryan Smith, who was a non-finisher in that last race. Darryl Callaghan, who was a non-finisher in that last race. Then Luke Speck and Nathan Higginson, they too non-finishers in that last race. Speck will be interesting to watch from the back here, Rhodey. I'll be interested to see how far he can get, as well as when we look at how far we are going to get strategy-wise in this race as we get ready for what should be a very interesting encounter. There's your race facts on the side of the screen there. There are pit stops involved in this one. We will wait to see how all this pans out as we get set. And we are go for race 20 of the 2024 ASR Supercars Championship season. And the same thing that happened in race 1 has happened again here. Walker gets the jump on the inside of the grid for the start here. But this time, he might just hold off. Oh, it's big lock up. Walker's gone. Walker's gone down the escape road. Big mistake at turn 1.
Yeah, I was going to say up to that point, he had it pretty well held. Same time around.
And he's gone.
The last race, and he's gone.
He's out. He's gone. He's out. He's out of this. He is basically he's retired from what I can see here, out of position. And Rosella leads this race. That is a huge. I don't know what to make of that, Rhodey. I've never seen that before.
I don't know why he's retired unless
Unless John McDonald's right, unless it's a blown engine of some nature. But no, I think what's happened is he's actually gone down the escape road and actually didn't stop the car, and he's actually put him into no man's land. So it's actually put him in a spot where he couldn't recover the vehicle, and that's a non-finish. So that's a bit strange, and I think it's just, again, out-braking himself into turn number 1. The car didn't want to stop, it just continued on, hit the fence, and then sort of went into no man's land. So that's rather interesting.
It's either that, it could be that, it could be a combination of that and the blind engine.
All the blind engine along with it, yeah.
Contact, but yeah, that's again, like, I think there's still a record out there, and it's not this one for the earliest retirement, but again, lap 1, turn 1 retirement is pretty early as things going. Up until that point, he had pretty well set. And I was going to say, yeah, same time second round as the first time. I was going to get same verse, second. I think that's the one I was going for.
Second verse, same as the first.
That was the one I was going for. Okay, yeah, because it pulled away from Rosella. Obviously now that's gone, and Devonish should probably start again and fall behind Stenberg. So so that part at least is held intact. Where Rosella's now got a pretty clear gap, and that's continuing to increase. There's 1.6 seconds currently and increasing over Kurt Stenberg, who's got Will Devonish in right behind him. And then Green's got a fight back there with Foley over 4th.
He certainly does. Yeah, just looking at some of the comments in the live chat there as well. It was a little bit difficult to pick from the front on camera shot at turn number 1, but there's reports there that it looks like the smoke might have been the same colour or same shade as an engine smoke. It was very difficult to spot from where I was looking at it. But it might have been that he actually blew the engine on the approach to turn number 1. I think he probably just went way too deep. Oop, there's a further away. I think he might have just gone way too deep, trying to hold the position, knowing that Rosella was going to come back at him at turn number 1, and probably just got the downshifts wrong and money shifted the car to a point where it then went straight on, which probably explains a fair bit more here. So Burko now trying to hold off Redmond, who's coming through the field. Good charge from Redmond. This will be interesting into turn 1. Burko concedes. It's a long race, so you want to be very careful here. And he's given up position to the 43. So next on the hit list for Redmond is Igmanis. Now everybody has moved up 1 spot by virtue of the retirement of Walker, which means we've got Igmanis there in the 51. He has moved up into 11th place, which actually puts Rutledge inside the top 10. So you don't often say that Cam Rutledge is running inside the top 10, but the last couple of rounds he's actually not done too bad. He's been knocking on the door of the 10. I think he's had a finish inside the 10 at the Gold Coast as well, Rhodey. So in a nice little bit of form here, but this is what you get when you keep your nose clear.
Yeah, just going to double check that one. Yeah, he picked up a top 6 in race 1. So yeah, he's been quietly plugging away, Cam. I think he sort of had a goal in mind of where he liked to be, and he's found to be there or thereabouts, but I think he is trying to just pick up the pace a little bit. Maybe find himself maybe falling off of the guys he wants to race. And actually, speaking of Cam, I think of the guy behind him, Igmanis, gives us a longer race. I think someone talk about some of the deliveries we've got here. So Igmanis is running. I had to actually question this one, although my question to this one was more the sponsor rather than the choice of delivery. This is the livery that Cam Waters ran in his NASCAR wildcard appearance here in the year. Was at Sonoma, and the sponsor for that car is Orcus. He just moved on his teammate in Cam Rutledge, so he's now up to 10. But the Orcus one's an interesting one because I don't understand why they need to go on a race car to be sponsored themselves. It's a government decision. That was also something that they're trying to get dollars or votes for. It's already in play. Anyway, that's a completely different thing, and that's where he goes into not going to recall into racing. But yeah, so he's running the Orcus livery, which is based on the livery that Cam Waters ran at Sonoma in NASCAR about a month or two ago. And that's actually come out quite well on the Mustang, although I will, to pick up what you put down last week with the Oros and the grill on Ryan's car in Dev Series, I want to remark that the execution, high quality execution, but I don't necessarily agree with the look of it, the realistic looking headlights on both his car and Will Devinish's car for this round, not the biggest fan of them.
Oh yeah, I'm not a big fan of it either, and I did notice that when I was looking at these liveries, and I thought, you know what, I need to do a Lewis Wedding style livery Nazi thing, because I look at this and I go, what the hell?
It's something that people have already been asking me, given that I'm one of the guys that just get the livery packs now, they're asking me, hey Rhodey, when are you going to do this sort of stuff? And I'm just like, I don't tend to want to be that kind of a person, but no. I don't know. Maybe next year I can lean into it a little bit, because it seems to be very much, if your livery is bad, you don't like it. But if if you manage to improve like the Michelin star critic on liveries that was Lewis Sweaty, if you manage to impress him, if his only complaint with the livery, I mean, case in point for me was, oh, your logos are too big. I'll take that as a win, given the amount of feedback he gives to other people. So, like, you know, it's ultimately a bit of an iteration to try and progress your livery work. And I suppose for where guys are out for Supercars and Dev Series, there very much is the expectation of a certain standard, which all these guys have hit tonight. I'm not saying nobody has, especially liveries are out tonight. I mean, Tomo's done the execution, or the work put into it, the technique used to get there. Top quality. It's just I don't necessarily agree with the design, but the way it's been put together is very well done.
No, I agree. Redmond now makes a spot on Rutledge as well. We saw that happening in the back of the shot there, so that is 11th place for him. So he'll be out after Igmanis now as well. You can see the notable difference there as well between the difference on the headlights as well. So that's yes, that drew my ire as well, Roddy. I was looking at that a little bit earlier. So 5 laps into this thing now, there's plenty of moving going on, and when you look at the way things are, Rosella clearing away from the group in front, so no surprises there. This big long freight train here that starts from Mitchell Steele Allison and goes virtually all the way back to, who's that just in front of Redmond, that's Igmanis, so there's about half a dozen spots there, and it's only going to get longer because look at all the list of cars behind, so Rutledge, Burko, then you've got Brown, I think you've got Steve Warwick's in there as well. So there's a lot going on in this group, or this first group, and then the second group after that. Allison's just made a mistake through the water fountain here. Cox is going to be up the inside of him at turn number 4, and they're going to try and proceed that on to 5. So they've got to leave himself a bit of width here. This is getting interesting. That's very close on the exit of 5. Now the next corner goes left at turn 6, and now Cupid's going to try and put himself in the game here. This has put Redmond right onto the tail of this group, and this is now going to be, whoops, rather angry as Cupid almost exited stage left and into a concrete wall.
Yeah, so this is classic street circuit stuff where unless you can get your pass done in that corner, in that moment, or in that sequence of corners.
And there's an accident at the back too. There's a big accident at the back. There's a big log jam at the back, and this is going to trigger, and this has triggered a safety car. So there's cars everywhere here. Someone was in a fence, and
Steve Warwick missing a wheel.
Yeah, Steve Warwick missing a wheel. So we'll come back to that and have a look in a minute. Now, do we see anybody dive for the pit lane here? Because the pit lane is open, and this could be your opportunity to get this over and done with and get home, provided nothing else happens. And nobody appears to be taking the bait. No, Burko is, and I think maybe Zach Brown did as well. Warwick's going to try and limp this car back to the lane, but I fear it... well, we've seen this happen before, where we've seen tyres on cars, or wheels on cars replaced, but that was a rather interesting incident. And I'm just trying to work out who started. I think it was started by Warwick, unfortunately making a mistake. And let's get the read on this. So this is a very unusual, what's that, unusual, sorry, it's probably the wrong word. This is probably one of the corners that we expected to see some activity at, because it's one of those ones where you can try and carry the momentum. We saw Brandon Dostal fence it, I think it was, here in the Development Series race. So Warwick, yeah, he was well off the apex. Okay, straight into it. Oh, yeah, stacks on the mill. 1, 2, 3, 4 cars involved there. And then Speck with the only one with some sensibility actually to arrive on this, realise the yellow flag and jam the anchors on. So that's what happened there. And Warwick now has tried to limp that car. He's actually limped it into the pits. So we will see if he's able to get that repaired or not. There he is coming into the lane.
Yeah, I think that's going to be down to individual. I know in a couple instances before I've gotten quite good at ripping wheels off cars. I know sometimes sometimes some mods will let you have the wheel back. I'm not sure whether there's a setting or not, whatnot for it. I have a feeling, given that Warwick's lineup door box has moved around, I don't currently see a wheel appearing yet on that car. I have a feeling it might not give him back a wheel.
Oh, no, here we go. I'm keeping an eye on things just to see what's happening. He's in a box now, but we're just waiting to see what happens here as we wait on a few things to take place. You can see Higginson is actually about to join the circuit. And yeah, so Higginson about to join the track. Oh, and there's, I've just noticed, I think as well, maybe we might have, potentially might be losing Zach Brown here. I think he might be in the fountain.
I think we did just lose him, yeah.
Yeah, so he was in the fountain here as everybody was coming across. So he's officially out. Now, those that stopped, Steve Burko, Rory Collins, Ryan Smith, Nathan Higginson, Daryl Callaghan, Darren Lognan, and Steve Warwick. Obviously, Warwick damage. So Lognan, Callaghan, and Warwick are a lap down. Higginson on screen is now a lap down. So
I think most of those guys, I think Higginson perhaps maybe the exception. I think all of them were involved in some form anyway. So I think they all just had damage and thought, you know what, well, we're here.
Well, Lachlan definitely did. Callaghan did. I'm not sure if Higginson did or not.
I know Ross was definitely involved, but also this lines up standard for a pixel thing, where if the race allows for a safety car or allows for a pit stop under safety car, you'll go and take one because you can just go and get fresher tyres, put a bit more fuel in a fuel splash. We're definitely going to get some fresher tyres.
Now these two on screen were two of the three lucky ones that got out there. So Collins and Smith, they got out before the safety car came around, so they're still on the lead lap. So they'll go to the back of the train. Steve Burko's the other one that got lucky in all of this. He's just a few hundred metres up the road. There he is. So he's trying to catch up to the back of the train here as well, which is down at turn number 8. And I think for their sake, we're going around again. So Rosella's taking the field around again behind the safety car. So this is working out well for them, but they are going to have to clear lap traffic as part of this exercise when they get to the back of the safety car. So the last car at the moment is Lockie Lock, and then between him and actually I'm just looking to see where Higginson is. So Higginson's come out in front of Mitchell Steele Allison. There he is there, and the rest of the guys that are a lap down are actually at the back of the field. So Callaghan and Lognan are, where are they actually? They're coming around the final corner now, so they're trying to play some catch up to the back of the train. So they're going to be a little bit of lap traffic. Steve Warwick, incidentally, still in the pit lane, and he has got a tyre back on the car, but is continuing to lose a few laps here. So
actually, he's just retired.
He's just
doing something didn't quite click on, or maybe he's I don't know. The tyre's definitely back, but maybe it didn't actually appear for him as a physical object. I don't know. I guess we'll find out if he's from the live chat or something. It'll say something in a little while. I will say, as in case in point, if anyone who was saying in live chat expected me to respond to him in race 1, I couldn't see it. So that's one of a few things. Apparently, my browser on my computer isn't supported by any of the Google products anymore. It's that old, which includes the live chat thing doesn't pop up for me anymore. So I've now got my phone up as a third screen just for the live chat. So I can see you guys down there now.
Yes, you can.
Yeah, actually, I will say now that I see that he's in the live chat, and I can criticise some more liveries while we're under safety car. Actually, I'll make sure we're going around another lap first before I do that.
Yeah, well, let's wait and see. Well, Rosella's quite close to the safety car here, so I'd say we are going around again because he would have had to pick the field up by now at turn number 8, because that is the rules in the driver's briefing: is please can the leader get control of the field at turn 8, so we don't have a situation of a false start, which
that's
in
a
the development series.
Everything around the lap. So yeah, my question is, because I can see him in the chat there, Lewis, and I imagine either Lewis or Rossi painted the livery that Rosella's running tonight. But two questions, I suppose. One, is it based on anything in particular, or is it just a livery? And two, at least from my perspective of the car, why does it look like it's got stubble on it?
What do you mean by it looks like it's got stubble on it?
That's my one criticism of the grey, and especially at least with my graphics level, which introduces some anti-alias blurring along the edges. Oh. Just the grey around the bottom of the car, it looks like it's a face, and it looks like it's a shaved face, but it hasn't quite gotten, like, it's still a bit of stubble all around the bottom.
It goes around the doors as well, Rhodey. So I wouldn't say it's stubble, but I'd imagine it's based on a car that is actually from somewhere. I mean, I'm not as sort of American motorsport aficionado as a number of people in here, so we'll wait and see what that is. But you've been able to pick up the Whistler livery on on Will Devenish's car.
Yeah.
You've been able to pick up the Cam Waters submarine car on Curtis Ekmanis' car, and there's a few other ones that are up in the field that are there as well. I think Lockie Lock's got a special one.
Yeah, Lockie Lock's
but I don't think that's based on particularly anything.
I don't think it's anything particular. No, is it a Chick-fil-A livery? Which I was trying to get an understanding, but apparently Chick-fil-A sponsorship or their marketing thing is they have a bunch of cows telling you to eat chicken. I was like, why are cows telling you to eat chicken? It's like, well, you don't eat so much beef. So that makes sense when you think about it. But yeah, so that's why his Chick-fil-A livery has a lot of cow print along the back of it. We'll see that car a little bit later as well.
We've got it on screen at the moment while we're coming around to the turn 8 here as well. So there's your answer. It's in the live chat there, Rody. It's based off a real car which raced at Long Beach in the IMSA series. So your research exercise for this at the end of this broadcast is to go and find what that car actually was. I mean, I don't care if you do it offline. You can tell all the people what it was in the comment section after the chat, after the night is over. Right, end of lap 10. Going back to green flag running. Rosella heads the field. The 4.5 second or so margin that he had has been erased by the safety car. There have been some callers on pit road, so let's see where this shakes out, because fuel was a little bit of an issue coming into this race, but and tyres definitely so. But none of that sort of matters now at the moment, and off we go again at the beginning of lap 11.
Yep, so back to green we go, and Rosella and Stenberg have both pulled away from the front of the field. Devon actually pulling away a little bit as well from Tony, who's probably going to end up being the start of the first battle pack as things go. The leaders are starting to pull away though now. Nice and good clean run for the guys through the mountain.
Not quite clean, because the traffic cones are gone flying as Steele Allison and Kiddis did battle there, and they're still doing battle on the other side of the thing. Oh, big lunge down the inside at turn 5 there as well. A little bit of contact with it. That's checked Steele Allison up. Look at this, the big log jam's about to ensure right behind as well, because you've got Igmanis, who's now just managed to get right around the outside of Steele Allison. He's had a poor restart here as well. He's been battered and bruised for the opening couple of corners, and he's very heavily under assault here. Same too that Igmanis is putting Kiddis to the sword here as well, down the back chute, and he's going to force the defensive move, I'd say, for Kiddis, and he is, making him drive down the inside here. Now, you've got to be careful, because you're on the outside. There's a tyre barrier waiting for you, and they get through.
Yeah, so Kiddis was a bit lucky there actually. He got a bit of a slide on going coming up the hill, and he was lucky that Igmanis was further back, otherwise Igmanis would probably already be past him. But yeah, bit of a cheeky move. Oh, actually Cupid around as well. I think he got a bit of assistance into a half spin, but he's caught the car and lost a few spots. But yeah, slightly cluttered restart there. Yeah,
a little bit of a cluttered restart. Cupid did lose a couple of spots in that one as well, so he's dropped back to, I think, to 14th or 15th now. Locke might be about to round him up in the process there. Now, Burko was one of the ones that came in and stopped for tyres on that last lap. So he was the first of the group. So it was him and Collins and Smith, and he's actually getting a wriggle on here as well. So he's back to where he started and putting the tyres to good use here. So 10-lap-old tyres on the, or 11-lap-old tyres on the cars in front versus about 4-lap-old tyres on the car behind. So you want to make some headway here. Look at you'll see the difference in performance. It'll happen down here at the braking zone. Burko's got so much more grip, and he actually gets that job done fairly easy there, getting alongside, and then gets better purchase out of the corner and drives up and over the hill. And Cupid's going to follow him on down the inside there on Rutledge at turn 7. So Cupid didn't stop, but the gap had been opened up for him by Burko going through.
Yeah, so and as well, and I was talking about earlier, what caused that first safety car is you can't get a move done in one corner, in one section. It follows the rest of the train up, and we've seen that in Burko trying to get past, and then Cupid also trying to get past Canberra. You can check the entire train back up as well, and then yeah, what it does is it creates opportunities for passing later on down the road. But what this has meant is it's now spread them back out a little bit as well. So Burko now pulling through. Again, he's going to be doing that though. He's on the fresher rubber. He's currently trying to put a pass on spec to bring it to turn 1.
Yeah, he's actually getting that move done right now, just in front here. So down the inside, yeah, tyre disparity again gets that done, and through to 11th place. So Burko, the one on the move here, having a look at his last lap time, 23.8 versus everybody else around him. Now he's got a little bit of clear air. He'll have to catch back up to Tim Redmond, who is in 10th place. He's like basically locked onto the back of that group of cars that's just absolutely nuts to butts here going through turn 6. So Cox is now the cork in a champagne bottle. He's starting to hold up Kiddis a bit, who's starting to be getting worried by Igmanis behind as Redmond pulls the trigger on Steele Allison. That moves him up to 9th. Now, who stops here and when do they stop? That's the next question that we want to look at here. If anyone in this group is going to stop, where are they going to pull the trigger? All the time Burko's getting closer to this group. They are starting to hold each other up a bit. I'll be interested to see the lap times when we get around to it, because Burko's about to join the back of this group. There he is, bottom shot. So he's really getting a wriggle on here. Let's see what the times are as they come across the line here. So 24.8 for Kiddis. So 24-7 for Cox, 24-8 for Kiddis, 24-5 for Igmanis, 23-8 for Redmond, who caught back up. Steele Allison with a track cut. Burko, 22-8. So tyres are doing, or newer tyres are doing the business right now.
Yeah, I have a feeling, based on that sort of pace, but also just comparing the very start of this race, Burko's probably going to have to come into the pit lane again at some point, probably later than the rest of the cars. But I imagine he'd have to be back in later. I don't think to stop that early in the race is going to cut it for him, especially with how he's pushing on. But what it does mean is the yellow flag. Or Higginson, who's down the
down the escape road at turn 6.
Okay. Yeah, what this is going to mean for Burko is he's potentially have to pit again, but he's 2 spots up from where he started, so that's, I suppose, a good metric for where you are relative to where you probably should be. So he's ahead of himself.
Sorry, Rhodey. Bit of a mistake. Rare mistake from Kurt Stenberg, running a little bit deep at turn 8. Devonish nearly got down the inside of him here. He's forced a defensive hand from Stenberg, and now looking for a cutback out of the hairpin. So this is as close as these two have been all night for some time now. Devonish starting to put the pressure on the championship leader. This is for second place as they head up to turn number 1, and he's not going to get the move done around the outside there. He's just trying to make it as difficult as possible for Stenberg, making him take the compromised lines. But through here, you've got a chance to settle and get back to the standard racing line, but it's not easy for Stenny at the moment. Devonish is really starting to put the hammer down, and all it took was one mistake at turn 8.
Yeah, and I think for these guys at the front, even with that safety car, perhaps starting to walk into that window where the tyres are starting to go off a little bit. And around here, a lot of it is stop-start. A lot of it is low-speed cornering where the aero, what limited aero you have in Gen 3 isn't going to be doing a whole lot. You're really going to be relying on the tyres around here. And with them starting to fall off, you're starting to see a little bit of mistakes creeping in for these drivers as well. I mean, the only one who's hopefully got a bit of window to allow for their tyres to do what they need to is Rosella with nearly 5-second lead at this point. He's got room where if he needs to take a tenth off of his approach and save some tyre and keep himself clear of a wall, he can afford to do that. Stenberg, though, at this point, the damage right off his trump. He doesn't want to give that spot up to him, so he's forced to run more or less 10 tenths and very much take out any safety margin he might be otherwise giving himself.
Yeah. Now, importantly, I think these two are starting to lose some time to Green behind as well. The times that they come across the line, both did a 23 or 22.8, 22.9, and Green was a 22.7, so he was quicker than the pair of them last time around. Oh, there's some contact. Does Devonish made a mistake? What's happened to him? He's gone down the escape road and he's out of business. That was very strange.
Yeah, actually, I think there was.
Oh, and Stenberg as well.
He's in the fence, and he's had to actually drive back up the track to try and get himself back out of the way. He did a flick spin, basically. In what your equivalent to be the pit exit at turn 1, is turn 2 where he's only flick spin. And so they're back going more or less in the order that they left the track, but also both 2 or 3 spots down from where they were.
Well, let's have a look at this on the replay, because this was rather strange. I wasn't expecting this. So Devonish tracking straight down the middle of the road. Stenberg tries to come across, and a bit of contact there. And they both, you see there, Stenberg hit the fence. Devonish went down the escape road and then had to recover. That's rather strange. I've not seen an incident like that before.
Yeah, he was actually, Stenberg was very lucky actually that he ended up being positioned. He actually, there was contact actually with Tony. I think it was just the contact with Tony that spurred to him. Look, even though I'm probably better sitting here, being predictable, I also need to get out of the way because he's very much in the firing line. So that's what kicked him to spin the car back around, get it down back to turn 2 and flick spin and get going again. So
all
in
of a
the
sudden,
end, it's going to go back to where it was. But in the end, it's put them both out of the order. They're still fighting each other, but now over 6th and 7th. And in the end, it's put Foley. Oh, hang on, Rosella.
Well, Rosella has.
Down to third.
I think
he's pitted.
Rosella's pitted. So this now means that Green and Foley have moved up the order here. They're 1st and 2nd on the road. So Rosella has pulled the trigger here and decided to pit. I reckon he pit potentially thinking there might have been a safety car involved at some point. Well, now there's been an exchange. So now Devonish gets down the inside of Stenberg at turn number 1. So that's a legitimate pass this time around, as there was nothing Stenny could do to defend that. But I'm wondering if he's thinking about a long game here, maybe trying to perform an undercut and get some service coming fairly shortly. So where does Rosella shake out in all of this? Because he's currently in the pit lane. He's down to 15th. Burko, who stopped, has gone through. So too Collins, so too Smith. They have gone through after all of this. I'm just looking to see where he is at the moment. Rosella is leaving the lane now. And the next man for him that's on the track is the 17th place Steele Allison, who's in the lane. So Rosella's got clear path out of the lane and will come out into clear air, completely and utterly into clear air, but in 16th. So now the interesting part of this equation, Rhodey, is what about this man on screen? What about Ryan Smith? What about the man who's a couple of spots further up the order than him, Rory Collins, because he stopped as well? And what about Steve Burko, who's currently sitting up in 8th place? These guys have already stopped. There goes Speck in the lane. Those 3 guys I just mentioned, they've already stopped. How far can they go? And what times can they do? They need some green flag running here. They cannot afford a safety car. Safety car comes out, their race is destroyed.
Crucially, the point to make with all this as well is so Foley stayed out from his battle with Tony. Will Devonish has stayed out from his fight and actually just gone past Cox. He's had it from his fight with Stenberg. So those two are both going for overcuts on the drivers they were racing against. Redmond has stayed out. Burko, obviously, he's the one that is going to stay out. The question for him is when he comes in, and I guarantee he's going to pit at some point. He's probably hoping for a safety car later in this race to make his actual race pit stop. But at this point, he's got car base over Redmond, such as where the tyres are at, and he's got 5-6 lap fresher tyres. So he's going to be able to go to probably lap 21, 22. He probably wants to pit early enough to make effective use out of his tyres in his 3rd stint. But that's going to be the deciding factor, I think, for Burko. He's trying to make a move down here. Apparently looking for a move down here in the last corner. But I imagine he's expecting Tim to pit this lap. He's probably just going to let Tim pit and make the pass that way.
Well, we'll see.
So Rutledge has stayed out. Ross has stayed. Well, Ross was actually one of the ones to pit as well. So he's coming up through now with all the other guys pitting.
Right, so here we go. Big queue of cars going to start to come to pit lane. There's Devonish, there's Cox in behind him. Redmond now pulls the trigger as well, so that's music to Steve Burko's ears because he goes through. Steele Allison, who pit now has unlapped himself from Steve Burko. He's got much fresher tyres, so he'll be able to take off and try and catch up here. Now this is important too because they've got to get out before lock, and they have. So that's very important for both these drivers on screen that they've cleared that car there. Brenton Foley still leads the race. Been a long time since Brenton Foley led a race, Foley. I think the last time we saw this was the race earlier in the season at the Bend where him and Stenny went toe-to-toe and was probably one of the exchanges of the season. But Foley hasn't won a race for some time. Now, he's still got to pit from what we understand unless he's gone into a fuel-save mode. His last time was a 24.5, but I don't think he's in a fuel-save mode. He's probably just looking when can I get in?
It'll be tyres. I think he tried to run longer, probably on the hoping for a safety car, because at this point, if safety car came out now, Speck is the only one who's going to get back in the lead lap. Everybody else will be trapped a lap down, which includes Kurt Stenberg at this point. So you're in a good position if a safety car happens as the lead drivers, but that's not going to happen. I can see the way that Foley's car is sliding. He would have set it up not to do that specifically, or not to do that excessively, but he's starting to basically try and handbrake the turn car through the hairpin, so it's out of tyres, it's in. The next car now is Steve Burko, who I imagine won't be pitting anytime soon. So he's going to resume the lead of this race for a few laps.
He's going to take the lead of the race, but a long time since Steve... Take the lead of the race.
Assume the lead of the race, yes.
Assume the lead of the race, that's right. So first lap of Supercars competition led of the season for Steve Burko. We didn't think we'd be saying that at the beginning of the year, and that's not a slide remark or anything. We genuinely didn't think with the quality that was in the field that he was going to lead a lap this year, but he's picked the strategy, and he's picked it well so far. It's just about how far he can go. So remember, we went back to green flag racing at the end of lap 10, and Burko had been on the tyre for about 3 laps, give or take. Foley's come in at the end of lap 19 with worn rubber. So even with safety car, the tyres had only gotten through to about lap 15, or give or take, if you were doing proper running. So Burko, he's now got to treat these tyres like glass. He's got to lead the race. He can't afford to burn them.
Yeah, I mean, look, it depends on where he's at for fuel. If his fuel could make and he can baby his tyres, maybe he can make him reuse. He's 11 seconds back to what is currently second, which is Rory Collins, who's also one of the drivers who pit at the safety car. So in terms of the next actual car on track, based on what we assume to be the lead pack, that's currently Luke Rosella. He's 4th. He is... I'm trying to get the timing to come around. He's more or less half the track behind though.
Yeah, we'll get a read on that in the next few minutes or so.
37 seconds is the gap between 1st and 4th right now currently. Yeah. First and what should be effective first. So, look, Burko has a gap where if he can only lose a second or two per lap, he's got that sewn up well and truly. But if he has to pit again, then he has to do that in a way that minimises his damage and gets him out early enough that he can make good use of having fresher tyres than the rest of the field again.
Yeah, well, we'll wait and see how that works, because he's dropped back from the cars in front of him, which is Ross, Locke and Rutledge. He's just letting them go along and mind their own business while we're watching Collins on screen. So then there's Ryan Smith, who's actually caught up behind the the satellite team car with Hayden Cupid at the wheel. So the top three drivers are the ones that took the poison chalice during the safety car period and stopped, but it's turned into gold for them because they have come out in front here, but it's about how far can they actually go. Because this is the strategy that won Burko the Development Series race late in the piece about a week ago. So he's more than likely going to have to pit. He can't make it happen. Oh, and there's, I actually just noticed there's, as Burko was coming around the corner, I believe Devonish might have been nose into a wall or backside into a wall somewhere, and has had a problem, I think, all on his own doing. We're going to go and grab a quick replay of that, because that's he's done that all on his own, and he's actually might have come in as a result of this, but this is running all on his own. And yeah, that's a long brake pedal there and straight into a tyre barrier. And did he get collected on the way through by somebody? They're coming around the corner at speed. I think he's looking for reverse gear. And what's he going to do here? So I thought I saw him facing the wrong direction. That's where I saw him. I saw him like that, and thought that maybe he'd spun or looped the car around, but he actually grabbed reverse while there was no cars coming and got himself out of the fence to actually give the racing line back to the cars that needed it. So he's actually pitted for a second time there as well.
He's going to go. He's at risk of probably going a second lap down based on where he was when he pitted and where the leaders are at. So he's very much in trouble. He's very much lost that battle to Stenberg now. I think. Yeah, he's relying on a Hail Mary to get anywhere near back to battling with Devonish again. So he's had that one straight over. Yep. But that's done that, and also potential theoretical potential race winner. Now a risk of being 2 laps down.
Yes. And very much at risk of being 2 laps down, and just waiting to see the timing screen kick over, because he's still registering here as actually being in pit lane, as Burko is going around, and I don't think Devonish is out of the lane. No, he's not. He's still stationary, so he is officially 2 laps down, along with his teammate Curtis Igmanis, who is on the track. We were just watching him try to re-overtake Darren Lognan a few seconds ago. He is also 2 laps down, so this is going to swing I'm not sure if this will swing the balance of power in the team standings, especially for this one, because the other 2 cars in the hands of Darryl Callaghan, who's currently 15th, and was it Lockie Locke, who is currently, on the timing screens, he's currently in 13th as well. Loughnan's gone and made a bit of an error down there at turn 4, and I think actually we didn't watch it because I was looking at the timing screens, but Igmanis is waiting for him, so I take it that that's an indiscretion there. As Burko, the race leader, has dropped it! The race leader has dropped it in turn 7. He's done the same mistake that a few drivers have done tonight. He's not going to lose the lead of this race, but there goes Callaghan, who makes it through here and gets his lap back and puts him on the lead lap of the officially back on the lead lap of the race, even though he is just in front of it there. But the race leader makes a critical error, and does he come into the pits to sort this out? He does. He's done. So he dropped it, and he's taken that poison and decided, nope, I've got to get this done. We'll go back to the replay here, all on his own. Turn 7, again, we keep saying it, it's the corner that people are just trying to take a little bit too much momentum through there, and that's what he did, and unfortunately it's cost him dearly. So any opportunity of a race win there for Burko is gone, and that promotes, well, Smith has pitted again, so Ryan Smith, he's come into the lane. That puts Rory Collins into the lead of this race, so El Brap, as he is known to his friends, has led a lap here in ASR Supercars for the first time since being promoted from the Development Series at the end of last year. He is, of course, the defending, or not defending because he's not in the series anymore. He is the 2023 Super 2 Series champion, and now officially leads his first laps in ASR Supercars. But for him, he's only 9.3 seconds ahead of Luke Rosella. So again, fait accompli would suggest that he is not going to win this race. It is pretty much the car with fresher tyres behind is going some 5 seconds of a lap faster.
Yeah, I think that's going to be where it comes down to. The fact that we've also seen both the guys that were with him into the lane, Burko and Spiff. I think Rory's only running a lap longer because he maybe wasn't being quite so aggressive with his tyres. But yeah, I don't think these guys are going to make the tyres last right into the race. So for now, it's just get into the lane, although he's continue around again. So I suppose I suppose Rory, being one of the ones left, he's going to try and roll the dice. He's hoping for a safety car, I think, at this point to minimise his pain.
Yeah.
But at this point, I can very much see it being a possibility that Rosella, if he doesn't pull into the lane, that Rosella's going to pass him on track probably in the next couple of laps.
Yeah, so it's only the length from the curve in the front straight there to turn 1, so it's only a couple of 100 metres is the difference between the 55 and the 843, so there's not much real estate left. Its margin is 7.7 seconds as it sits on your screen now. I think it's going to be about 6.5 by the time we get to the first timing intermediate, which is right here, and then that could become 6.5. So yes, so he's taking big chunks out here. Now it's visual. He'll be able to see the car just a few seconds up the road. So Collins up and over the rise in Bay Street, down into turn 7. Doesn't make the mistake that Burko did this time around, and you'll start to see there's Rosella back of shot there. So the gap very much visual now. He'll be starting to get some pictures in the front windscreen as he closes in on the rear wing of the Mustang through the final sequence of corners here. Now, what do you think, Rody? He did stop. If he's got the life in the tyres, does he just continue to go on and just see where he ends up? I know he realises it's a roll of the dice just to see where he ends up, but the next car behind Rosella, which is in third place, is actually Anthony Green. So Green is some 22 seconds off the lead of the race. So you know what? If Collins rolls the dice, he probably could be on for a podium here if things go according to plan. So it's not a bad idea just to baby it along and play the long game.
Look, if I was him, and to be fair, me being him, I've made some truly bizarre strategy calls in Dev Series. But if I was him, and if I had the tyres to make sure I'd last, yeah, I'd roll the dice. Roll the dice either to push long enough for a safety car and then come off these tyres, or if you reckon make it to the end, go to the end, because you're right, the gap, and I don't know why the gap's as big as it is. I'm going to guess Rosella probably had a better luck with traffic, and just, I suppose, Rosella being who he is, a lot more people were not going to exactly, a lot of people were prepared to wave the white flag and let him pass. Yeah, he's got a 20-second gap to what would be second place. I think if Rory can make it, you push. Otherwise, although he has just put the wrench up again, so I think he might be planning on pitting. But yeah, if you had the tyres and you make it last, I think it'd be worth pushing, because it's a 20-second gap back to second place. But the amount of speed he's not carrying through this last sector, I really think those tyres are not going to make another 6 laps.
Oh yeah, and he was very shallow there as well. Oh, and he's pitting as well, so that unfortunately means that it will drop down the order quite substantially. So Rosella resumes the lead of the race. That will put Anthony Green into second place, which he'll be on for his best finish in ASR Supercars since he jumped into the series at the beginning of the year. So this will be a great result for him. Alex Kiddis is currently sitting in what is a net third place. There he is across the line. Now, I believe he's definitely stopped already as well. So the times between Green and Kiddis, Green actually did a 23 flat last lap. Kiddis did a 22.1. So it's not said and done for second place yet either. And Brent Foley, who's behind Kiddis on the road here, his last lap was a 21.6. So this is, well, keep an eye on the lap times here, ladies and gentlemen, because you don't know what's going to happen in the next 5 laps.
Yeah, so based on that, yeah, Tony, I suppose what's come into this is I think that what we're seeing here is Tony came in with Rosella, I think. Kiddis was, I think, in the next lap, and I know Foley was out the longest of the guys that pit at the halfway mark. He pit at lap 19, but he's got the freshest tyres of this little train by far. Yeah, I think Kiddis is definitely, he's now within margin, at least where you can put a little bit of fear into the eyes of the number 10. Foley, if he's going to come into this, it's going to be right at the death. He's going to probably almost be relying on either a mistake or just battling from the two in front. And I think Tony would be happy to get a podium, but I think at this point he's in second. He's in second on merit. I don't think he wants to necessarily give it up to Kiddis.
No.
I think he's going to make him earn this. So I think, yeah, potentially last couple of laps, although we're not far off them right now, but yeah, last 2 or 3 laps, I reckon, a 3-car battle for second place.
All right, so let's have a look at the lap times this time around. So 22.5 for Green, 21.9 for Kiddis, and 21.9 for Foley. Foley and Kiddis were quicker than Green in Sector 1. They were virtually on a par in all 3 drivers in Sector 2. And then Sector 3, Green was 22.9, Kiddis 22.7, and Foley 22.6. So there's definitely some strengths and weaknesses shaking out here. I mean, if there's one battle that's probably going to end up with, it's going to be the one on screen here between these two. So Kiddis chasing down Green will be the interesting one. Foley is a little bit of a stretch. He needs to get his skates on if he wants to join this battle, but he's definitely got some pace aboard that car. Daniel Cox is in 5th place, so that's, again, good, solid result for him. He's having a good couple of rounds as of late in the season, and his last time was 22.3. Behind him, Redmond was about 0.3 of a second quicker. Again, there might not be enough laps for Redmond to fully erase that deficit, but he's definitely going to try. Luke Speck in 7th place. That's a big change for him. We did say keep an eye out for him from the back of the field. He's up 16 spots from where he started, so that's a massive return for the number 13. Brendan Ross, careful Rossi, nearly got the tyre barrier there on the outside of 7. It was waiting for you. He's up 10 spots to position number 8. Steele Allison, where he started, is in 9th, and then Steve Burko, who was the race leader for a little while there, is in 10th. He's got Cam Rutledge in behind, he's got Lockie Lock in behind. So this is a battle for position here, and then Stenberg is trying to hunt them down. He's in 13th there as well, but importantly for Stenberg, he's some 5 positions in front of his nearest championship rival, Will Devonish, who's trapped 2 laps down.
Yeah, so for Stenberg, it's very much, I suppose, like the sort of the Dev Series argument, trying to just put as many cars between who you're trying to race against. And yeah, at this point, yeah, he's trapped a lap down, so Will can't move any further up. Stenberg is just trying to make up some spots again. I think he's very much aiming to finish in the top 10, but he's got to make up 3 spots to do it. And Burko's on very, very fresh tyres at this point. Burko should actually pull the way. I think it's when he should be the freshest tyres on the field. Locke and Rutledge potentially up for office, but he's still going to make up those spots as well. And they are 2 laps down the road, but he's also going to actually get past those cars as well, and they're going to make him earn.
Well, here we go. Kiddis looking to the outside here. Green's going to defend this move down the outside there, so he gets that done, and on the cutback now as well. Can't quite get that move done. So now they're accelerating up through the gears. 4th gear, change into 5th gear, just north of 200 kilometres an hour. Hug the inside of the corner here, building up. 6th gear, 250, getting up to top speed, almost 263 kilometres an hour into the braking zone for turn number 1. Oh, a little bit of nose to no contact. So Kiddis got into the rear there. He was a little bit too late on the brakes. He has to get out of the throttle there and let Green resume the position. So that was us. Oh,
he's around again.
He's around again.
Has brought Foley into it as well.
And Foley has gone through. So for Kiddis, there's some contact there. And did Green get the inside wall after the issue? So let's have a look here on the replay. So coming down into turn 1, this was the issue here. So a little bit of a long pedal. Brake lock for Kiddis there. That's heavy contact for Green. So Kiddis backed out of it, gave him the right of way going through. Then there's a further whack there, and what happened to Green? Oh, the car just pitched to the left, and that's what's caused him to go around. So I'm sure there's going to be discussions after that one.
It'll be more than that, I think, because he's next retired with a puncture.
So puncture is the end of the day.
Battle for second to Green being out of the race. I think there's going to be some heavy discussions after that one.
Yeah, there's definitely going to be some discussions after that one. I mean, the braking in the braking zone possibly could probably be ruled a bit of an accidental contact purely because there was some lockup happening in the process to turn number 1. But then there was a secondary serve at turn number 2, which I'm sure that probably won't go down well, but we'll wait and see. We're not the stewards in this one. We're going to wait and see what happens is there. So, but that's what happens in racing sometimes. It has officially promoted Alex Kiddis through to second place on the road, but he is going to have to contend with Brenton Foley. So we will wait and see how this goes now. I don't think Foley's going to make any banzai moves here. He's probably just going to be quite content to sit in third place here and wait and see this one out. It does put a very interesting dynamic on the overall results for this round because, well, Luke Rosell is clearly the round winner. We know that much. But second and third overall for the round is kind of wide open here now, Rhodey.
Yeah, I don't. It's Kirsten was going to factor in there somewhere, I would think, but Devonish probably not.
Devonish probably not. Stenberg probably not either.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm going to have to see when we get the points in at the end of this one. But yeah, it's definitely round winner. That's easy to pick. Round second and third. Ooh, yeah, I imagine. I think Foley might even factor into that somewhere as well. But yeah, it's going to be hard to pick.
It will be hard to pick. Keep an eye on that battle. There we go. Down into the fountain for the final time. Luke Rosella will take this one out halfway now round the final lap. Well, we did say he was odds-on favourite to win this one. I think the bookies are paying $1 and 0.5 of or 0.1 of 1 cent. So you're basically losing money by putting money on him to not win the race. It was going to be a case of the spread. I don't think anybody sort of figured what the spread was going to be. Oh, he's made a mistake. Oh, my goodness gracious me. He's gone into the tyre barrier at turn 7. And has he killed the car?
I don't know, but he's parked right there in front of... Actually, he's going to influence the race for second and third here if he continues to sit there. I don't know. I could see revs on the counter. I don't think the car's dead, but he's not moving.
Wow.
He's about to give up the win of this race if he's there for any longer.
Well, we'll see what happens, because here comes Kiddis. Oh, Kiddis has dropped it. Coming into there as well. And Foley's going to come through and win this race. You are joking me. You are absolutely joking me. What has just happened in the last 30 seconds or so? I didn't see this coming. I did not see someone who was an odds-on favourite to win this race on the last lap throw it away at the halfway around the final lap, lazy as you want. Brent Foley is going to take a Bradbury here, an unexpected win at Long Beach before the season goes into a hiatus. What a way to finish this round.
Of the ways to hit, and I've watched racing in all its forms hit their winter or their summer breaks over the last month or two. Obviously, a lot of it for the breaks for the Olympics this year. Ours is obviously post-Olympics, but I excuse the French to borrow from the Olympics, but what the fuck was that?
Yeah, I agree. I don't know. Let's quickly, while you get your thoughts together and your language, let's just run through the order. So as it stands, now we have to call it as it stands. So Brenton Foley has taken the win, completely unexpected. Alex Kiddis in second, although we will no doubt probably see some things coming out of that, so that's an interesting one there. Daniel Cox is third. I think that must be his first podium in ASR Supercars. I can't recall another time where he's finished on the podium since his Super 2 days in the development series, so he's pleased as punch about that. Redmond finishes fourth. Brendan Ross fifth. That's completely unexpected. I wasn't expecting that either, Rhodey, considering where Rossi's been most of the year. Luke Speck finishes in sixth, so another spot gained there. So he gained 17 spots, biggest mover and shaker of the night, starting from second to last on the grid in this second race. Rutledge seventh, so he's going to be absolutely chuffed to bits with that one. That's a genuinely solid drive for Cam Rutledge. Stenberg recovers to eighth. Great haul of points for him. That's almost going to possibly put the championship out of reach for anybody behind with just 5 races to go in the championship. So he's got one hand on the cup at the moment. Lockie Lock to ninth, and he started well down the order as well. So that's a great bounce back from what was a pretty poor race one for him. And then 10th was the man who led a good portion of the middle stint of this race in Steve Burko. That is a massively upside down second race and completely unexpected. And I think, Rhodey, you're probably right now furiously doing the points, trying to work out who on earth we're going to have a little chat to after the night's over. I think for one, I think we've got to grab Luke Rosella just for his return and the fact that he's at Long Beach. We'll grab that. Probably Brenton Foley, I'd say, as well, is going to make an appearance because he's finished both races, and I dare say is probably the round winner, if not close to the round winner. So there's definitely a 2 there. And then I'm going to leave it up to you to try and figure out who else we're going to bring up. But I don't think at this point we're going to be able to call a round winner just because there's so many variables in play here at the moment. I wouldn't know where to start.
Yeah, I'm still trying to get points in because Saturday night my live timing has not been working for me, which means I've got to rush while everything's still hot. But what's the Q for 13? I'm gonna have to leave this to you to do a bit of quick back of the napkin math on who the top 3 are out of all this, because my brain is just not gonna allow me to. I haven't even properly processed how that last lap went yet, let alone the scoring as a result of it. So Rosel's going to be a DNF completely, which is very much, first to a DNF. You don't see that a whole, especially in the last, especially words are failing me, and that's amazing for me.
Well, the important bit of the equation to note with that is that because he's a DNF, the rules state you must see the checkered flag to get points, even if you're a lap down. So
up to 14.
So that means he will drop down toward the bottom of the list. But that's something we'll have to work out in post, because that's just the way that is. So either way, Devonish only gains 1 extra spot, but everybody else that was 1 lap down or more than 1 lap down is going to gain an extra spot as well. So that's just something we'll need to work through and all of that. But I guess in the grand light of day, I think probably the first things we probably need to grab, and I think you'll probably be on the chat here, is probably to grab our first place getters for for both of the races, because they probably do deserve a chat. Because I mean, from Luke Rosella's point of view, he's controlled 99.8% of the night and come up, a couple of corners short of victory. And then Foley, I think, probably just to really want to see what on earth went through his mind in those last couple of corners.
Yeah, so that's a good place to start. Just get the last of the results I can see.
The only hard thing that we've got to try and work out with some of this as well is I'm not just working it out here, looking at the point score on the math here and just working out where everybody is and what they've actually done. So I think you've got most of them in correctly. If I'm looking at Brenton Foley, I'd say he is your round winner with 252 points. I'd say Kurt Stenberg is probably very close to maybe either second or third. He's got 219 because actually Anthony Green, I think, probably might be the one that you need to take a look at here, because he probably is going to be classed, I think, might be classed higher up the order than you think, because he actually, where was he? No, he actually retired with suspension, and that last one, you're right. So he's out as well with a DNF. So that, I think, probably means Foley's your race winner. Daniel Cox is going to be second, I think. So him and Stenberg are equal on 219. So that's your top 3.
All right. Well, in that case, I was going to get Cox for you anyway, because it's also his first podium. But so Stenberg as well.
Yep. So Kurt's joining us at the moment, but you're absolutely right. There's it's thrown it into chaos, I think, is what the element has done here. Very rare that we actually end up with 2 drivers that are tied for second overall for the round. But just looking at the weight, and it's hard to work it out too, because both of them have got a 3rd place and both of them have got an 8th place. So there's really no proper tiebreaker with all of that either. We just have to work that one out. But grabbing all these drivers up, and then we will have a little bit of a chat. But while Rhodey, you put the word out there and you wanted to grab everybody and go from there, I guess the only spot we can probably start with is from the bottom up, I guess, while we wait for everyone to come in. We've got our round winner will be with us soon, but let's start with Daniel Cox, Rhodey, because from what I could see, this is his first podium in ASR Supercars competition. I can't recall any other time that he has stood on an ASR podium before now. The only other time would have been in the development series.
Yeah, well, you're here with us now, Coxie, and I suppose you can correct that for us first. But yeah, from where we sit, that looks like that's your very first ASR Supercars podium. Congratulations.
Thank you. It's the first time I've crossed the line in third.
There you go.
I got a podium, I think, after everyone killed themselves at the Grand Prix, and third at Queensland, and also the boxer race, which is out at Alton Park, which is the greatest boxer race ever raced. So, but no, it was a good race. Yeah, I had pace, I guess. I only started practicing pretty much today, and just figured out the track. It's a very hard track, but my goal was basically just not bin it, because there's so many places you can bin it, so many little bumps if you just push too hard and bounce off. But no, my goal was just like, I got into the top 10 the first race, went excellent, and I was literally going to be happy with seventh. I'll just sit here, and then we're quite sillily just sort of let Foley and Kiddis go, because I thought, oh, I'll just let them. I want to manage my tires just in case something happens. I'm happy where I am, and honestly, if I kept on battling, I might have gotten up there. But that's the thing, I could have put it in the fence. So either way, I'm stoked with my first podium. This is awesome. I finally get to see my car with the podium board that I made for everyone else, and now I get to see it. So it's effing awesome. I love it.
Yeah, that's fair enough. And yeah, you're right. It's you've been putting the work into giving us all the renders that go for the interviews, but it's the first time you actually had at least your supercar. Actually, no, the first time you had your car at all, because I think you started these renders after you moved up from Dev Series. So yeah, it's the first time
Yeah, I
your
remember when
livery
yeah.
has appeared on one of these, has appeared behind one of those boards. But nice work by yourself tonight. And look, it was very much, I think that second race was very much just being in the right spot at the right time. And look, you admitted you let the eventual other podium sitters disappear out in front of you. But even race one, you had a pretty good run in the end there to pick up an 8th place. How'd that go for you?
Yeah, that was good. I was basically same thing, surviving. I kept on, when I do engineering for Dev Series guys. I always tell them, watch where the finish and start line is, because if they're not going, you can pass. You can accelerate and pass them once you cross the line. And I finally did that on stream. I finally did it, and I think I got 2 people on a restart because they were caught napping. So it was, yeah, like finally, put money in my mouth, or whatever the thing is, and I'm sorry, I'm sweating. I am sweating. I'm bugging. That was hard work, but no, shout out to all the CRE guys. They raced well today. I think Cam got up there on 7th. Like, so he had a great. I think we're gonna jump, maybe jump some spots in the team, but I don't know. But we both did really well, so I'm pretty stoked. This is, yeah, definitely finally qualified well. Finally didn't bin it. Finally passed people. It was great.
Yeah. Well, nice work by yourself tonight. Then, Darren, I know, sorry, Daniel. Everybody's losing their minds tonight. It's a bit of a break from a bit of a break till we go to the next round of Supercars. But I will ask you about that because I haven't got come out of my head where enduro lineups are at. What's your thoughts coming into Taupo?
Taupo, I don't know. We've never raced there. It's going to be a new track, so hopefully, sometimes there's a lot of work to be done if it's an R factor track. I think Higo's actually going to try and do the different track surfaces, which I don't know if it'll be good or not, but that might be fun or awful. But it'll be interesting. It'll be new tracks. It's good that be an official track that's on the calendar now, and we're racing there. So yeah, like once it gets out, I'll probably do the same thing. I'm just going to sit to practicing on the day now, because if I'll sit there, do the most best lap 3 days before, and I'll never do it again. So I'll just, I mean, they do it in real life. They practice on the day, so might as well do the same thing.
Fair enough, Coxie. Well, great work tonight, and we will catch you in a couple of months now at Taupo.
Thanks, mate. Thanks, everyone. That's great.
Alrighty, moving on to our he's going to be race 2 winner, and I think he's going to end up second in the round. The points are all a little bit funny to try and keep track of, but Brenton Foley, your first time on the top step of a Supercars race podium in how long?
Oh, it's got to be a couple of years.
How's it feel to be back?
Oh, really good. Like normal this year, I did not have any qualifying pace, but as soon as we started race 1, I thought, oh, geez, the car's actually all right. I knew I couldn't challenge like Rosella and those guys, but I knew that I'm kind of lost for words as well. But after we go on green flag, the car just hooked up. It felt really good. Weirdly enough for me, it didn't actually melt its tires horribly. And yeah, I thought that I'd be on for, maybe a top 5 or something like that. And then when a couple of the top guys sort of had a few incidents or bad luck or whatever, I came into some luck, had some clean air, and I thought I went one lap too long on the initial set of tires, but I knew that I could not get half the race, which was 16 laps, out of the tires. I just knew I couldn't, so I pushed the first set to the absolute minimum, and I lost, I think, 4 or 5 seconds on that last in lap, and I thought, oh, I've kind of ruined it here. It could have been a podium and so forth, but I knew I was catching Kiddis and Green through that whole last stint, and I was pretty happy with the laps that I was putting in, and I thought I'd get to him, but I didn't have enough laps to catch him. But I guess my tyre math was correct for once, and they kind of fell off a cliff, and I didn't, and then so I was battling Kiddis, and like, one more lap, and we would have had a really good fight, but didn't expect to come around the corner and Luke be there, because I wasn't even paying attention to that. I was just aiming at the car in front.
Well, yeah, I mean, yeah. So that was race 2. Race 1, it was still pretty well though. Pick up a 6. It's maybe not quite where you're used to being, but the strength at the front of the field is quite strong this year. So it's a bit of a fight for you to be up there. But still, a pair of top 6 results, and obviously your first win in what goes back to a couple of years. Pretty good night overall.
Oh, absolutely wrapped. I thought it would be a weak point. I had some pace at Gold Coast and had a bit of bad luck there, and then when I initially did some practice here, I was like, oh, I don't think it's going to suit my style and this and that. But no, it's turned out to be a good night, and I'll definitely take it.
Yeah, well, it's great work, and I suppose then your thoughts coming into the next round of Supercars, which is at Taupo.
Never driven there, so look forward to the challenge. I'd never driven a supercar at Long Beach before tonight. I've driven Long Beach a couple of times, but never a supercar. So maybe we'll try and keep that ball rolling. We'll see what happens.
Alrighty, well, great about yourself tonight, Foley, and that'll help you out in the point standings, no doubt. And we'll catch you in a few months' time at Taupo.
Thanks very much. Looking forward to it.
And finally, he wasn't actually the round winner. He was actually tied equally second tonight, getting his 3rd and 8th in the opposite races to where Daniel Cox got his 8th and a 3rd. But importantly, he still leads the championship, and actually with a nice little buffer now as a result of how tonight played out. Kurt Stenberg, how'd tonight go for you? Kurt, sorry, we've got really loud interference from you there. You just want to double check your mic?
Yeah, I think precisely that's what he's gone to do at the moment. He's just gone down to check. You might have to just quickly follow him there, Foley. Sorry, Roddy, anything I was about to say. Yeah. We might try again. Is that better?
Yeah, sorry. Is that good?
That's much better.
You're a bit
Thank
quiet,
you.
but you're definitely not blowing out my ear anymore, so that's good.
Headset does weird things. It's kind of not the night that I would have hoped for. But P2 for the round, you're not gonna complain at a round where you had a drama. So I knew I didn't have Luke's pace tonight. Luke's a wild card entry as far as I'm concerned. He wasn't a target. It was Wayne and Will were on my sights, and quali I got balked and it didn't really go to plan. And first race was really, I went, well, this is the qualifying race. We need to get ourselves into the first 2 grid spots, the first 2 grid rows. And we managed to do that, which I was surprised about. And then, look, I had contact with Will there. I apologized to Will. As soon as we made contact in a straight line, I was out of control. I was trying to stop it, and I'm surprised I hit the wall and didn't get completely damaged. And then the car was still reasonably drivable, even though it had steering damage, and I forgot to untick damage. So I sat there for a 49-second pit stop. And then from then on in, it was basically push as hard as we could, because my tyre wear was surprisingly not as bad as what others sounded like. I thought my tyre wear wasn't that great, but I could easily make 16 laps, but that was about it. It was about 16, 17 was the limit before they were not great. So, but would have preferred a better result in the second race, but to recover after being in the wall and then having a big damage pit stop, 8th is a fantastic result. So especially after the last round. So and hey, 3rd was about as good as I could have expected in the first race. So all round reasonable night from where we were. So we'll hopefully build on that as we keep coming on, because it seems like my rivals had a pretty terrible night, which is unfortunate because it's not how I want to win this thing. But when you're not having a good one yourself, it makes it easier for yourself.
Absolutely, and look, half the fight is just being in it to win it and actually sort of being there to take advantage of what's given to you. So, yeah, you've done a pretty good job tonight, all things considered. Second in the equal second in the points, given especially the chaos in race 2. That's a pretty good way for things to turn out.
Yeah, it's fantastic. So I mean, P2, I would have thought that I wouldn't have been P2 for the round, being 3rd and 8th, but obviously a lot of people that did good in the first race had a shocker. So it's good to be the equal second best person.
Absolutely. Well, obviously, Enduro Cup comes up next, but the next time we're going to see you on track in a supercar in the Supercars series is at Taupo. What's your thoughts coming into Taupo?
I'm interested to see how it goes in these cars. I have raced it in another AMS league. Obviously, it might be a different track version, but I do know the track layout, so I have done a race there. Don't mind the track, but it is an interesting one, and I don't know what the format's going to be or anything. But I tell you, you won't want to. I would not want to be any of my tires at that venue. So, and I don't want to. If it's a strategy race on tires, God help us all.
Well, great to see you tonight, Kurt, and good to see a good result. Maybe not the best you could have planned for, but definitely the best you could have got out of tonight's racing. And we'll catch you in a few months' time at Taupo.
No worries, and big congrats to Foley on the race win in race 2. It's fantastic to see him get a result.
Absolutely. Well, before I hand back to Nether, I do want to quickly shout out a couple of the drivers as well. We didn't get a chance to bring him in for an interview, but Haydo for his first time out in a supercar. He didn't necessarily set the world on fire, but he's got some good results there and kept himself out of too much trouble. And also Ryan Smith, he did fade very quickly, but look, big ups to being a 3rd in qualifying with his year event, but also just generally to all the drivers. I mean, we all had thoughts going into this, especially the guys who raced or were present last week about how tonight would go. It definitely wasn't clean, but as street circuits go, that was probably about par for what we expected, rather than what last week was for the Dev Series guys. But I'll hand back to Nether now.
Thanks, Roddy. And look, I would agree with you. You know what? We always knew that there was a high probability that there was going to be safety cars in both the development series and the Supercars races. We just didn't know how many. I mean, the development series showed that, a lot of the time they couldn't string more than 3 or 4 laps together without causing a 3 or 4 lap safety car, and they spent probably 2/3 of their nights racing behind the safety car instead of actually racing. It was the complete opposite tonight. There was only about, 10, 11 laps total behind the safety car for 3 safety car periods. So you put, 32 laps and 16 laps together, you've got 48 laps. You're spending probably the better part of, 38 laps of proper racing, and I think that's a good outcome. I think that's definitely a good outcome. The twists and turns that the night took, especially in race 2, I think were completely unexpected, and there was definitely a little bit of intrigue and a little bit of curiosity as to what might have happened, and that just goes along with the fact that, putting the soft tyre forward as the only tyre available for the night's racing definitely made racing interesting tonight. It made people think on their feet, and it brought up some unexpected results, and some people thrived where others didn't quite cut the mustard. So for those that have recovered well, they've done a great job to recover well. And the championship, as I said before, is now, I think, is quite... Kurt Stenberg's probably got one hand on the trophy just by the nature of how things went tonight, but the drop round's still got to be factored in. So there is a little bit of water to go under the bridge yet before we get to season's end. Now, speaking of season's end, I can confirm for Kurt Stenberg that when we do get to Taupo, Rody, not Taupo, Taupo...
Sorry, I realised that after I said it for the 5th time.
Yes, yeah, Taupo International Motorsport Park, which the series is actually on hiatus for a couple of months now because we do have the Enduro Cups coming up, which are not being broadcast for the first time this year, which is a little bit of a different take for us, but it's giving the admin team a little bit of a break through September and October. Taupo for the development series is on November the 1st, and for the Supercars series, it is on November the 8th. So they're going to be sprint races. They're not going to be tyre-based races. They're going to be sprint-based races, but the tyre compound has not been decided yet. So that's the only thing they need to be aware of, is that nobody can really practice between now and then because A, there's no track, but B, the tyre compound isn't decided. And then the last round of the series is, of course, for Supercars is at Adelaide, which is for Supercars is November 29th, and you lop 7 days off of that for the development series, which means November 22nd. But the development series also have 2 other rounds coming up. They've got single round events at Sandown in a couple of weeks and Bathurst a couple of weeks into October. So there's still a bit of racing around, still some broadcasting that still has to happen, but the Supercars Championship is at a point in its time where by the next time you see us, we will be discussing drop round points and what implications that has for the championship, because it is a floating fixture and it's not like years gone past where your drop round was after it was up until a certain point. It is a rolling thing. So if you haven't had a drop round yet, or you have a worst round in your last 2 rounds of the season, then that comes into play and replaces your current existing drop round. So we'll wait and see how all that pans out. But in between now and then, have a fantastic bit of time off. We're going to see you for a development series race in a couple of weeks in early September around Sandown. So until then, please drive safely and we'll see you next time. Bye for now.